Hello, hello everyone. How are you doing? How are you doing? I hope you are doing great. This Monday is the last Monday of 2024, but it is the first day of the week. We are making it to 2025. I hope everyone has all their New Year's resolutions together or things that you're going to sustain that work for you for this year. So I'm coming to you because I have a three more videos that I would like to review with you guys. I think they're very interesting. They definitely happened or they were recorded and talked about this year. So we're going to check them out together and I hope that you enjoy it. So the first one that I have is a online gamer. Apparently there was a missing person situation that ended up in unaliving a homicide, and this online gamer was actually involved in it. So we're going to see how this played out. Let me share my screen. All right, and I hope you guys enjoy. Let's see what's going on. Wait, I think I have a better setting because I want y'all to see everything. All right, here we go.
Ricky, your gamer tag is Dark Book, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
What's a book?
The events of this video can best be described using just one word: shocking. But before we get down to the nitty-gritty, we need to start 9 years earlier. In 2002, ex-Marine Doug Stewart went on a blind date with a woman named Venus McComb. They rushed to the altar and were married 4 days later. In no time, they had kids together. Since Venus was the breadwinner between the two, she had little time for the kids. Because of this, she urged Doug to find a better job, but he disregarded her requests and spent most of his time playing Xbox. These issues escalated throughout 2009 after the family moved to Newport News, Virginia. Venus then decided that enough was enough. In February of 2010, she up and left with the kids and moved back to her parents' home in Colon, Michigan, leaving Doug and the apartment in Newport News. 2 months later, on April 26, 2010, a 911 call was received by the Colon Police Department. The caller was Venus's father, Larry McComb.
She's just not there? I mean,
Yeah,
is there a
she's not
vehicle
here.
missing or anything?
The vehicle is here, her kids are here, and she is gone.
Okay. Have you tried calling her or anything?
Yeah, we can't get hold of her.
The last time Venus's mother saw her was at 6 a.m. while leaving for work from their Michigan home. Venus was dressed in a gray shirt, pajama bottoms, and brown Crocs. 2 hours later, Larry was awoken by his rambunctious grandkids making noise in the living room. He quickly realized that they were unsupervised and that Venus was missing. He urgently dialed 911. Michigan State Trooper Aaron Steensma promptly arrived at the residence. His initial observations painted a disconcerting picture. The gravel in the driveway had been disrupted, as if a struggle had taken place. And on the tank beside the driveway was a footprint, presumed to be Venus's.
So I wanted to stop here, right? Because leave it to grandparents and older citizens. They really do realize when something is off in the house, right? Because they spend a lot of time being particulate. They're in their retirement season. So they tend to get OCP. They're very, compulsive. They have certain things that they set a certain type of way. So they expect it to look like that all the time. So it wasn't too alarming to me that the grandfather would realize that the stones on the gravel was looked like it has been moved or shaped. Most people, when they wake up in the morning, they're not really even caring. And it also depends on what area or environment you in. If you're not in a environment that has harsh climates on a regular basis, then you won't really necessarily realize that something is off. So I just wanted to point that out. Let's go on.
Also, on the ground was a pink hair tie and the plastic wrapping for a blue 8x10 tarp from Walmart. This wrapper had a fingerprint on it, which was sent in for testing. Through questioning Venus's parents, Steensma learned about Venus and Doug's tumultuous relationship, which recently culminated with Venus winning custody of their children. Since Doug lost the custody battle, detectives were concerned that he may have been involved in Venus's disappearance. So naturally, they were eager to speak with him. They were able to reach him via cell phone later that night. They asked about his whereabouts whereabouts earlier that day, and Doug said that he was in Virginia running errands. One of these errands was dropping by Wilson & Wilson, his attorney's office, to make a payment early in the morning. Sure enough, authorities spoke with the secretary and another employee at Wilson & Wilson, and they confirmed that Doug had come in to make a cash payment that morning. They even described Doug's appearance, which was later confirmed with surveillance footage from Doug's apartment building. He was wearing a baseball cap, a hoodie, and sunglasses. This placed Doug 11 hours away from where Venus disappeared in Michigan. It seemed that Doug had a solid alibi, but police weren't ruling him out just yet. They applied for a search warrant of Doug's apartment and truck, and while they waited for the green light, a different search was taking place in Michigan.
A search continues tonight for a Cullen Township woman missing for 2 days now.
News had broke about Venus's disappearance, and dozens of volunteers, along with a helicopter and search dogs, spent hours upon hours assisting in the search efforts.
Investigators searched for hours today looking for any sign of Venus Stewart. Acres upon acres of fields, briars, overgrowth, and scorching heat.
It's very thick, briars. It's very hot in there. There's no wind in there. Right where those guys are at.
Dozens searched all day for any sign of Venus Stewart.
While the search took place, Venus's parents were left in shambles.
Hey, Chaz Focus. Happy holidays to you. I've been great. I hope everything's been well with you. Thank you so much for tuning in, sir. So I wanted to stop and say this. Like, I know that we have seen certain cases where we've seen a lot of, police force, foot on the ground, helicopters, a lot of, equipment and time and overtime being put in by law enforcement or detectives and stuff like that. And I know that a lot of people like to think that, wait a minute, why they're only hyper focused on one case or only a certain cases, and there's so many different cases that doesn't get that type of support or work behind it. It's not because they don't want to. It's most of the time it's because of the resources that is available for them at that time, right? So we don't unless we actually know what their fiscal year is and how much resources they get within that particular month, they might not have that type of resources or able to give that type of overtime for detectives and police work to do that type of searching and at that particular time when this particular incident occur. Right. And then we have to also take into consideration, depending on where the crime happened, that location, you have to also work with other state and local government. If that is not their jurisdiction, you just can't walk into somebody's jurisdiction and say, I'm going to take it over because there's a case that I need to evolve or a missing person or a discovery body. You have to actually work through the change and get approval for you to go ahead and investigate in that local government. So there's a lot of things behind it, why some cases, or it will seem that a lot of cases do not get this type of extensive overtime work and effort to put in to find said individual. Not all the time is just like, them brushing it under the rug or, oh, they don't care, or it's because these particular individuals they're from a certain type of town that is more defranchised or low income and they don't really necessarily care. Not all the time that has to do with it. Sometimes it's just depending on what year, like what time in the year is and how their resources is looking like for the end of that year. Hey, Empress, how you doing? Thank you for coming, sis. I appreciate you. So let's go on.
Only able to guess what may have happened to their daughter.
It's numbing. You go from numbness to hysteria.
Around 7 Monday morning, the McCombs' daughter, Venus Stewart, vanished. Venus was staying with her parents after leaving her husband in Virginia. Her father says he immediately noticed what looked like the remnants of a scuffle in the gravel of his otherwise perfect yard.
You can see there's a footprint or two, and my daughter's footprint was up on the tank here.
Police located Venus's estranged husband, Douglas Stewart, in Virginia, but didn't find Venus. Missing for 3 days leaves her parents fearing the worst.
So they figure he parked his car there, he snuck behind the wood pile and waited for her, and when she came out to put the mail in the mailbox, he grabbed her. She didn't make it to the house.
She was the best mommy in the world. And I know she would never leave. on her own. There's no way she would ever leave on her own.
Her parents were convinced that Doug was responsible for Venus's disappearance. The spotlight on Doug was coming from all angles, and to make things worse, the media even dug up this police report from 2008.
24-hour News 8 obtained court documents that detail the couple's tumultuous relationship. In 2008, Venus requested a personal protection order saying, quote, "I am scared to death. Every day I live in constant fear. I'm constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering when he will appear again."
And 7 days after this discovery, a letter from Venus was found hidden in a drawer.
Tensions mounting as a note left behind by Venus Stewart is discovered in her home. That paper containing disturbing details of abuse.
Detailing allegations of molestation against Doug Stewart, Venus's estranged husband, involving one of their daughters.
Doug could not catch a break. Not only were the police honing in on him as a suspect, but his image in the court of public opinion was looking rough. And
So, like, we all know that most people, when they get, when something happens to them, most of the time people have something happen to them by somebody they know, somebody that they were in a relationship with, whether it's a friendship or intimate relationship, or it can actually be a family member. Most people get attacked and harmed by those three different categories. It's very rare that we have people who are hurt and injured by complete strangers, right? That kind of falls into like the serial killer type of range, where this person would just randomly go and attack anyone if you were just in the wrong spot, wrong time, wrong place, right? So I just wanted you to keep that in mind. So right now, we still doesn't necessarily know if her husband have committed this missing, because we don't even know if she's alive. They have not found a body yet, he is the primary suspect because he is the closest person to her. That was her estranged husband. Now, when they go back and they look in his history, they see that there was a PPO that was out on against him. She has a journal and letters and notes discussing her domestic abuse, basically explaining how fearful she was. So that they're going to use that to build the case. So right now we're at the building the case part, as well as trying to add more things into discovery. Hey, Lana, how are you? Good to see you. Let's go on.
to top it all off, Doug was simultaneously fighting to regain the custody of his children, who were in the temporary care of Venus's parents as a custody battle ensued.
Oh, we're just horrified, you know.
Doug Stewart, Venus's estranged husband, now in the midst of a legal snarl, attempting to gain custody of his kids. On the phone with her father, Larry, he tells us before Venus disappeared, she was afraid.
Now, Venus was so scared that when she came back to Michigan, she took out a will 3 weeks before she was abducted. And it said in her will that if anything happened to her, she wanted the children to go to me and my wife.
The McCombs say they're hiding the children for their safety. Larry tells us a custody hearing is scheduled for May 24th and that the kids and Venus will have representation from the state.
Come on, Doug, where is she? Where's Venus? Come on, Doug. Yeah, you're a disgrace to the Marines, buddy. Yes, you are. Sure.
Sneers and jabs from a riled-up crowd tonight, their anger directed at Doug Stewart, the only person of interest in his wife Venus's disappearance. Stewart in court today for a custody hearing involving their 2 children.
Pray for Venus!
Protesters clutching signs, a backlash against the possibility of Doug Stewart getting custody of his kids.
We want the public to be aware that we do not want Doug to have those children.
A Child Protective Services worker took the stand and answered questions, citing concerns with placing the children in Doug's care following allegations from one of the girls of inappropriate sexual contact, even though charges were never filed in connection with those allegations.
A final decision was not met during this hearing, so the children would continue to be in the care of Venus's parents.
Relieved. I feel real relieved. That's about all I have to say.
Although her parents won this battle, the war raged on and another custody hearing was scheduled for a few weeks later. Despite being accused of murdering his wife and potentially losing custody of his kids, Doug maintained an innocent demeanor, as portrayed in this phone interview.
Now that the timeline has gone so far, I'm getting very worried and very concerned. I don't know what is next, to be honest with you. I'll just keep watching the news and pray and hope for the best. I don't know. I pray for my children every night. I pray for their mother, and I pray for the McComb family, that they get some truth on this, and we can figure out where Venus is.
At this point, the search warrant for Doug's apartment and truck had been approved, so the detectives showed up at Doug's residence in Virginia. Doug was as cooperative as can be. Unfortunately, there was no sign of Venus in the apartment. However, when searching his mess of a truck, they discovered a Walmart receipt for the purchase of a shovel, a pair of gloves, a cap, and an 8x10 tarp, the counterpart for the plastic wrapper found in Venus's parents' driveway. The receipt was from a Walmart in Van Wert, Ohio, which happens to be en route between Newport News, Virginia, and Colon, Michigan. The date was smudged, but investigators were able to find the purchase in the Van Wert Walmart's transaction records. They determined that the purchase took place the evening before Venus's disappearance. This seemed like a huge breakthrough, but how could it be significant if the secretaries and surveillance footage confirmed that Doug was in Virginia at the time of the disappearance? The detectives had a theory that someone had posed as Doug, dropping off the envelope of money in a disguise, while the real Doug committed the crime in Michigan. As far-fetched as it seemed, investigators refused to leave any stone unturned. They went back to Wilson & Wilson to question the staff once again. This time, they described Doug in more detail. He was wearing a baseball cap, a hood.
So I know this seems far-fetched, but that kind of does make some sense, right? If they're saying that they can catch him in Virginia at the same time when she quote unquote went missing, however, there was someone who wasn't that far from her in Ohio that was picking up stuff at Walmart. I know a lot of people like to believe that people don't enlist other people to help them commit crimes, but they do. Some people do it for money. Some people do it because they're in love, and especially if it's that situation where they're two lovebirds who wants to run away from the world and live with each other, and this is the only way they can do it and have money. People will do a lot of crazy things, and it ain't no telling. So we have to just keep an open mind when it comes down to situations and scenarios. There's going to be many different theories that is going to be thrown out there, but the whole point is they have to find plausible reasoning as into why this occurred and who's involved. That is the only way that the prosecutor can go into the court, make a strong case, and be able to succeed, because this is a criminal act. We don't know if this woman is not alive anymore, but she is missing. So it's right now, this is in the realms of criminal, right? So we're going to get a non-guilty or a guilty judgment on this one. This is not civil. And thank you, Miss Jalen, for the $10 super chat. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Yes, thank you very much. Yes, congratulations to all of us. We are at 10,000 subs and we're growing. So just make sure y'all are keeping the like button, hitting the like button, comment, and subscribe. Tell a friend if you like these videos. So let's go on.
Hoodie with the hood pulled up, and large aviator sunglasses. A concealing outfit like this typically isn't a fashion statement, but rather a strategic way to prevent others from identifying you. And if that was this man's intention, it worked. Neither of the Wilson & Wilson employees could say with 100% certainty whether it was Doug or someone posing as Doug. If this really wasn't Doug, and instead was someone posing as him, that meant that Doug had an accomplice. And if there was an accomplice, Doug would have had to communicate with them somehow. So detectives started looking into Doug's cell phone records. 4 days prior to Venus's disappearance, Doug was making a suspicious amount of calls, between 7 to 15 a day, to one phone number in particular. Then, there is a gap in the records indicating that Doug's phone was turned off on the night before Venus disappeared and turned back on the following night. As soon as the phone was turned on, more calls were made to the same suspicious phone number. Authorities were quickly able to trace this number to a 20-year-old student from Bear, Delaware, named Ricky Spencer. Authorities were struggling to understand why a 29-year-old ex-military man was making so many calls to a young college kid from Delaware. So, investigators went to Delaware to question the kid himself.
How do you know Doug Stewart?
Through Xbox Live.
Through Xbox Live.
Ricky explained that for the past year and a half, he and Doug had been virtual best friends, playing online shooters together day in and day out. And on one occasion, Doug even invited Ricky to stay over at his house during his spring break. Ricky agreed, and the two met in person for the first time on April 1st, 2010.
We were trying to go to the clubs, but I'm not 21 yet, so.
Oh, you're not 21 yet?
No.
Okay.
And then we played Xbox. I mean, he was a chill guy, but it was just awkward, you know?
Yeah.
Because he's like close to his 30s, and I'm like in my 20s.
Right. When's the last time you saw him?
My spring break, it might be in the beginning of April.
Okay.
Based on Ricky's phone records, detectives figured that this was a lie. The morning before Venus's disappearance, Ricky was in Delaware, where he turned off his phone directly after a call with Doug. Then, the next morning, he briefly turned his phone back on, pinging a phone tower just north of Doug's apartment. He then turned his phone back off. The next time his phone was powered on, he was back at his home in Delaware. As the interview continued, Ricky recounted Doug notifying him of Venus's disappearance.
He was like, Ricky, she's missing. I'm like, what, dude? Because he was telling me, like, she does weird stuff, like weird stunts.
Ricky had already lied during this interview, so the detectives were hesitant to believe anything that he said. To increase the pressure, they proceeded to lay their cards on the table.
I'll be blunt. Doug Stewart abducted and killed his wife. Okay. We also know that somebody went into a legal office down there in Newport News, Virginia, to pay a legal bill for him. We also know that you were down in that apartment.
Yeah, I wasn't. Wait, for what?
On the 25th of April. And the 26th.
Of April? No, that was only on spring break.
Ricky would not admit to being in Virginia at the time of the disappearance. He also made it clear that after learning the public details of the investigation, he had distanced himself from his virtual pal, Doug.
I Googled his name again, and I saw some weird like, they found like a receipt or something from a different state close to Michigan. And I was
I don't know. I'm not gonna excuse this as him being young, but he's being really foolish, and he's not doing a good job at lying, because the way how he's trying to distance himself from this guy, you knew that this guy was like, what, 10 years, 11 years your senior. He's a Marine. You're just a gamer. You're not even 21 yet. You've been speaking off and on with this guy via Xbox Live, and you went down to his house for your spring break to hang out and chill with him. So obviously y'all relationship was becoming stronger. The bond between y'all was becoming stronger. It wasn't like a associates bond where you just only chat amongst each other via the internet. You actually made it your business to go and visit him at his place of stay. So your bond is a whole lot stronger than what you're trying to lead on to. And then now when he's trying to pretty much restate what he's hearing online, and he's pretty much going saying back everything that the detective is saying back to him, it doesn't help his case at all, as him being convincing that he has no idea what happened if he's not actually a part of it, right? But we'll find out more. Let's go on.
I was like, what the? And at that point, I was like, I'm not talking to this guy. That's weird.
The detectives played to Ricky's emotions, showing sympathy and support for him in the high-stress situation that he had found himself in.
You're probably thinking, wow, am I going to get in trouble for this? What am I going to do? I didn't know any of this was going to happen. You know what I'm saying? It is, I know. And I don't think you were involved in the planning of that. I think it was more him. And you just kind of got caught up in something. You realized after the fact, whoa, this is way over my head. I don't want any part of doing this anymore. You got a couple sisters, right? Okay. What if this happened to your sister? You close with them?
Yeah, I'm pretty close with them.
What if somebody took your sister?
Be upset.
You'd be upset, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
This is what's going on with Venus's family. They're right now going, we need closure to this. We really do. You need to help us with that, because you are part of this game now, but not our main concern whatsoever.
And like Shane said, if we thought that you were a main player in this, do you really think we'd be dealing with you like this? Absolutely not. So my first question to you is, did he tell you he was going to kill her before this happened, before you went down there? What did he say?
He didn't take care of business.
So the detectives are very good at their job. They're very good at what they do. As you're seeing, did you see the setup? Like, this is the psychology part of it. What they set up. First thing they did, it was like, hey, listen, we just want to know what's going on. Make him calm. Then they tell him information that can involve him into this crime. Then they go back into, well, listen, you're not really our concern, but you really need to help us. This is what's really happening, going on. If we really thought that you was really in on it, like you actually did the crime, do you think that we be addressing you like this? Again, putting him at a point where he feels that he has to rat out, or he has to give more information about what Doug was planning to do around the time when he came to his house, right? And this is all a psychological tactic to get him to open up, get him to believe that his involvement is not as criminal as actually committing a crime or a murder against someone, right? But nonetheless, you can still get in big trouble being a part of it, as small as just setting up phone calls, setting up an environment, or even pretending to be a person just so that other person can commit a murder. Like, that is still you being a part of it. It might be almost at the same level as a person who is committing a murder, right? But this is very strategic what they're doing, and now he's going to open up a whole lot more that, yes, you did know more than what you was led on to believe, So let's go on.
Michigan.
What was the business he said he needed to take care of?
Go see his wife.
Okay. Did he say why?
To hide her.
To hide her?
To get rid of her.
Ricky finally opened up to the detectives and admitted everything. Doug was currently staying with his parents in Michigan for his ongoing custody battle. So following this interview, police tracked him down and arrested him outside of Thrasher's Pit Stop.
Here in Fulton, where everyone seems to know everyone else, Doug Stewart's arrest has sent shockwaves through his small hometown, especially for those who have known Doug's family for years. Mike Ducat goes back 20 years with Doug Stewart's family and doesn't think Doug did it. He saw Doug's father just this morning.
I imagine it's hard on him seeing this happen. But he's strong. He's a strong individual, and he'll get through this too.
But Doug's parents are not sharing their feelings with our cameras.
I'm sorry, you're trespassing. We've got it posted. Thank you for coming. We have no comment.
All I heard happened was that he came into town and went over to the store to shop. And then the police swarmed him in the store and slapped the cuffs on him and dragged him away. There was no incident at all. You know, he was, like I said, very cooperative.
Although Venus was still technically a missing person, police declared her dead and charged Doug with the first-degree murder of his wife.
What'll happen will happen. You know, we can only hope that truth wins out. That's all we can hope for. It's easy to make accusations. It's tougher to prove them.
Shortly after this arrest, about 50 people attended a vigil that was held for Venus.
We come together to honor Venus and her family. Such a beautiful young woman, a mother, a daughter, a granddaughter, a sister, an aunt, a niece, a cousin, and a friend.
With candles and heavy hearts.
At a time like this, it's impossible to understand why, isn't it? I mean, you just can't understand why these things happen.
Wearing purple and blue ribbons in honor of domestic and child abuse victims, friends and family of Venus Stewart joined together Sunday to pray for the missing mother of two and her family left behind.
It just felt awesome that the community was here to support us and how much they loved and cared for us and our family.
About 8 months later, in February of 2011, Doug's trial began.
People of the state of Michigan versus Douglas Stewart.
Even while facing life in prison, Doug remained cool, calm, and collected in the courtroom. The prosecution's opening statement outlined the abundance of evidence that they would present throughout the trial. They were certain that Doug had killed Venus, and were convinced that by the end of the trial, the jury would be confident as well.
Douglas Stewart caused the death of Venus Stewart.
Doug's defense team refuted this sentiment, saying that with no eyewitness placing Doug in Michigan, no body, and nothing else to prove that Venus was dead, the idea that Doug had killed her was merely speculation.
Guesswork.
So, opening statements on a trial as well as closing statements can make or break a case, right? Even though they don't have necessarily any physical proof that Doug was near Venus when she had left. However, the most damaging evidence that the prosecutors have was the young Xbox gamer guy actually coming clean and stating that he actually told him that he had some business to take care of with his wife, and that was to get rid of her. That it was a damaging, very, very, very damaging thing for Doug and the defense attorney, because why would this young individual actually lie? He doesn't know Venus. He didn't play Xbox or play video games with Venus. He doesn't know his wife whatsoever. He has no motive to actually harm her. And I get, like I stated, when it comes down to situations like this, and we tend to get harmed by people that we know, people that we're in intimate relationships with, people that we are friends with, people that we are co-workers with. These are the most of these crimes happen with someone having some form of relationship with that said individual. That you being the primary suspect or the main suspect that they're going to go look for first is going to these type of situations is going to be very, very damaging for you, because off the bat, you have motive. Off the bat, you have motive outside. You have more motive than a random stranger, than a random stranger trying to hurt someone. You have more motive. So you have to just keep that in mind. You have to hit 3 points and to really actually seal a deal on winning a case. You have to have intent, motive, and I forgot what the other one is. It's been a long time, but I gotta refresh my memory later on. But it's 3 things that you have to fulfill, and usually that makes a successful case. But let's see how this trial actually held up.
If you think about anything in this case, I want you to think about the word guesswork. I believe at the end of this case, the prosecutor is going to ask you to guess.
Once the opening statements wrapped up, the prosecution began by calling several key players to the stand, starting with Michigan State Police Trooper Aaron Steensma. Steensma described his first observations upon arriving at the scene and the distressed parents that awaited him.
I pulled in the driveway and I was met by a female who was hysterical and crying.
And what did you do next?
She told me that he took her.
Speaking of Venus's parents, they were next up to testify. The prosecution aimed to show the jury that they were caring and stable individuals who raised their daughter to be a good mother herself.
Was it odd that your daughter would have left her children alone?
It was more than odd. It was something that would not happen.
Following Larry's testimony, prosecutors called a security guard from the Van Wert Walmart to help introduce the surveillance footage as evidence. In this footage, Doug can be seen casually walking around in his eye-catching Hawaiian shorts, buying the same items that were on the receipt. The Walmart employee who had helped Doug that day, a woman named Donna Stifler, was also called to the stand to describe her encounter.
Most people weren't wearing shorts at that time. I said, "Welcome to Walmart, can I help you?" And the first thing I think he asked for was lime.
Not this lime, this lime. Covering a body with lime is well known to aid decomposition while covering up the horrible stench. Unfortunately for Doug, Walmart wasn't selling the lime that he was looking for, so he groaned in disappointment and went on with his shopping, ending back up at Donna's cash register minutes later.
Do you remember what that person bought?
A tarp, shiny shovel, silver, duct tape, gloves.
Do you see that person in the courtroom today?
Yeah.
Was that?
Yes.
Could you point him out and describe what he's wearing?
I'm so nervous.
What is he wearing?
A white vest.
This wasn't the only shady shopping that Doug did. This footage was obtained by investigators after finding a suspicious purchase from Doug's credit card transaction history. Before he left Michigan, he stopped by this store to buy a track phone. Track phones are prepaid wireless cell phones, or in other words, a throwaway phone. These devices are usually untraceable unless a card is used to buy one. In this instance, a
Hey,
digital
Phil.
footprint is left behind, and the track phone's unique ID can be traced through GPS like any other phone. Detectives were able to track Doug's movements and place him less than 7 miles away from where Venus vanished around the time of the disappearance. If that wasn't enough, another thing tying him to this location was the fingerprint found on the plastic tarp wrapper, which did in fact belong to Doug. This evidence was damning to say the least, but the prosecution still had one more person to testify against Doug. Their star witness, Ricky Spencer.
Please call your next witness and we'll have him sworn in.
You call Ricky Spencer.
You swear to tell the truth?
Yeah, I swear.
How do you know Mr. Stewart?
I met him on Xbox Live, December of 2008.
How often did you play Xbox Live with Mr. Stewart?
Anywhere from 6 to 10 hours.
A day?
Yeah, on a daily basis.
Yeah. Would you say he was your best friend?
Yes. He called us brothers from another mother. Brothers from another mother.
When spring break was on the horizon, Doug made a proposition. He suggested that Ricky should spend his spring break in Virginia at Doug's apartment.
We can party, you can drink, and I can help you with your papers.
Ricky went on to describe his trip. For the first few days, everything was normal. They went to Busch Gardens, drank alcohol, and played video games. But on the fourth day, Doug's true intentions were revealed.
He's like, hey, Ricky, I want to tell you something. It's really important. Let me finish before you interrupt me.
Doug confided in Ricky about his rocky relationship with Venus. He characterized her as an abusive mother that jeopardized the well-being of their children. Something drastic had to be done.
And he was telling me that he was going to go kill his wife.
When he was telling you this, what were you thinking?
I was just shocked. I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
Okay.
He said, this is where I want you to come in, Ricky. I want you to be my alibi. Just pretend to be me and live in my apartment. I was like, no, dude, I don't want to hear anything about this. And he didn't talk about it for the rest of the day.
When Ricky declined, Doug seemed to take no for an answer and dropped it for the time being. But over the next few days, Doug fed Ricky bits of information implying that Venus was a liability that had to be dealt with.
How did that make you feel?
I felt bad for him. He was saying, if only, someone could be my alibi. I'm like, no, dude, I can't do this.
Although Ricky said no, Doug was persistent. He then won Ricky over by telling a story in which Venus had apparently tried choking one of their daughters.
Ricky, if I wasn't there at that moment, the kid might have died.
He again asked you to help him kill his wife?
Yes.
And what did you say?
I said, okay, dude, I'll be your alibi.
Once Ricky agreed, Doug took him to a nearby park to discuss the do's and don'ts of murdering someone.
He asked me, Ricky, if you're trying to kill someone and you don't want any evidence, what do you use? And I told him, well, not a gun because it leaves evidence. And he says, right, not a gun, so what is it? Not a knife because that leaves evidence. And he says, right, not a knife, so what is it? Doug said, you choke somebody.
After a quick glance to make sure that nobody was watching, Doug placed Ricky in a military chokehold.
He puts me down, and I'm out of breath. He says that if you do that to somebody for 10 seconds, they pass out. You do it for over 30 seconds, they're no longer alive.
Over the remaining days of spring break, they fleshed out their game plan. Ricky then went back to Delaware to wait for Doug's signal, which came on April 15th, 2010. They met up at a gas station in Bethesda, Maryland, where Doug gave Ricky several items, including his clothing, cell phone, keys, and a credit card.
What's that for?
You know what? You're right, Miss Jalen. It's because he said that he was saying numerous of times that he didn't want to do it, that he didn't want to be his alibi, and that Doug has to convince him at least about a 2 to 3 day span on how horrible his wife is and why he needs to help him. He should have called the police. On top of that, you should have went home. Once you said no, you should have went back home. You did not have to stay there, and you did not have to agree. So that also takes into the fact and the consideration about what's going on these online games on Xbox, PlayStation 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I don't care, whatever it is, right? All these gaming systems that allow people to interact with each other via the live chat. A lot of these individuals might not be people who have friends, might not have, be people who have close to them, that they can actually hang out or be sociable outside. And that is a part of the reasons why they actually do come online, play these games, because they want to be a part of that particular online community. But I have to believe that this guy was pretty much a loner. If you literally know, you hear him, you don't know this man from a hole in the wall. You only talk to him online via Xbox for a year. You go and you meet a stranger, you go stay in his house, right? And then while you're in his house for spring break, you're a young pup. You're supposed to be out there having fun, swimming, I don't care, like sailing, doing something, right? With kids your age. You decide to spend your spring break with someone who's literally 10 years, maybe 10 years plus older than you. Okay. And then this person comes out of nowhere and tells you that they need you to help them get rid of their wife, and you decide to stay. Like that, it really does says a lot. It really does. But let's go on with the rest of the story, because this is very damaging for the defense attorney and for Doug's case. Really, this star witness, the gamer.
This is the parking space area where I met with Doug Stewart.
Where did you go?
I drove to Virginia.
Hi, Mohammed.
Where did Doug tell you he was going?
To Michigan.
Good to see you.
What was he going to do there?
He didn't say kill his wife, but he said to take care of business up in Michigan.
Yeah.
But I knew what he meant.
Ricky drove to Virginia, buying Wendy's with Doug's credit card along the way before arriving at Doug's apartment.
Why did he want you to use the credit card there?
To make it look like that he was in Virginia.
Unfortunately for Doug,
Timer.
his plan was
Good to
foiled
see
when he was
you.
pulled over
Happy
on
New
his way to
Year's.
Michigan
If
for
you
weaving
celebrate.
lanes.
And he said, "Hey, dude, it's done. I killed her and her dad." I was like, "Wait, what?" And he says, "No, I'm just kidding. I told him that wasn't funny."
So he said he was kidding and you told him it wasn't funny?
Yeah. And he said, the plan's off. And I was relieved to hear it.
Despite this hiccup, Doug was still laser focused on his goal and made that clear to Ricky.
"Hey, Ricky, I want to try doing this again." I told him I didn't want to. It was like a one-time deal, and I didn't want to do it the first time.
In response to Ricky's reluctance, Doug upped the ante. He said that if he couldn't do it discreetly with Ricky's help, he would have no choice but to do it in a more straightforward manner.
He was talking about going in there and killing anyone that was inside the house, besides his kids.
So what did you do next?
I told him, "Okay, dude, we'll do it again. I'll be your alibi again."
All right, so what the witness is trying to explain, he's trying to explain coercion, a form of coercion. He's trying to say that Doug was convincing him and forcing him to be the alibi, and he started to agree to be the alibi because he didn't want anybody else to be harmed. Because Doug started talking very irrational with him, pretty much stating, "Well, this is going to get messy. I'm going to be straight blunt and just go in and probably have to go use a weapon, probably have to go use a knife or something. I'm going to attack her family members, the father." So him being a young boy, he didn't want that on his conscience. And that's why he was like, "Oh, okay, I'll be your alibi, whatever not." So he's trying to establish as where he was being manipulated at, and that he was also fearful from Doug by the way that he was speaking, that if he's talking about he wants to injure other people or more people, then what makes you think he's not going to injure him if he does not agree to his plans? That's what he's trying to establish with the attorneys. Let's go on.
The second attempt began on April 25th, 2010. This time, Ricky called into Doug's work pretending to be a sick Doug.
And I said in a sick voice, like, "Hey, Bobby, this is me, Doug. I'm feeling like, dude, I can't get into work." He said, "Oh, all right." So Doug didn't have to come to work on Monday.
At 7 a.m. the next morning, after arriving at Venus's parents' house, Doug called Ricky using the track phone and said,
"Ricky, I want you to leave anywhere from 8 to 8:15. Nothing later."
Following this phone call, Ricky left during his instructed time slot, disguised as Doug.
Do you recognize that photograph?
It's me leaving the apartments on the 26th.
Ricky then went to Wilson & Wilson to make the legal payment.
Just hand her the envelope, say who you are, and tell them that you're in a hurry and tell them to mail you the receipt.
Did you do that?
Yes.
Then, around 9 a.m., Ricky received another phone call from Doug.
He said, okay, dude, it's done. I was kind of shocked to hear that. I said, what happened? He said that he called Venus's parents' house in Michigan and said that he was the mailman. He had a package for her, and she came outside, and he jumped out, and he said that there was a scream. She screamed once, and that he tried putting up a fight, but he was able to get in that headlock, and a drop of blood came from her nose. I asked him if it was worth it. He said it was, to protect his kids and give them some type of future. He told me that he was gonna call me later because he was gonna go to bury her.
Following this phone call, Doug and Ricky met back up at their secret meeting spot in Bethesda, Maryland, where Ricky had a sudden and scary realization.
I was asking him, hey, dude, are you going to kill me? And he said, no. I said, good, because if you did, that would suck. And then he asked, why did I ask that? And I says, because I know what you did.
Fortunately for Ricky, Doug's bloodlust seemed to begin and end with Venus. But, unfortunately for Doug, Ricky living to tell the tale might be his downfall. The defense would now have to pull out all of the stops in an attempt to discredit Ricky as a key witness.
Ricky, your gamer tag is Dark Boop, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
What's a boop?
It means bunch of guys.
On top of revealing this inappropriate username, they also implied that Ricky was a liar, citing that he lied to his parents about his friendship with Doug and his spring break plans.
Did you want them to know that you were going to visit Mr. Stewart?
No.
Why?
Because it seemed kind of strange to go meet up with somebody that you played Xbox Live with who's a lot older than you.
Basically, the defense wanted the jury to see how inconsistent Ricky really was. They hoped to plant the seed that Ricky was a perverted, compulsive liar who made up a story and now needed to save his own skin. To back up.
Right. So that I knew that was what the defense attorney was going to lead with. They were going to say that he's a liar, he's a gamer. He didn't even inform his parents and let them know that he was going to go spend time with a grown man. He thought it would be weird, or he might be intimate with this older man, right? So those are one of the reasons why he didn't want to tell his folk. But I'm going to let you know that that's not going to fly, right? Because of the simple fact is that this young boy is not attached, nor is he associated with the actual victim in any form or fashion. He has no reason to want to harm this woman or even to lie on Doug and what he did to this woman, because this young boy live in a whole different state than both of them. They're both from originally from Michigan. Doug moved to Virginia, and this boy's from Ohio. He doesn't know these adults. These are two grown adults. So he has more, like I said, the motive and intent is too strong on why Doug would have a reason to do this. And there is no motive or intent when it comes down to this younger man. This younger man can be a liar, yes, but he already stated that he was fearful that Doug might get mad at him if he didn't go through with being his alibi and pretending to be him and paying a bill that he needed in his name to make him seem like he was nowhere near the scene of the crime when he went to go capture his ex-wife. He had high reasons to be fearful for his life as this young man, because if you are already talking to someone that is talking about committing a murder to another person, and this is supposed to be his estranged wife, what in the world do you think this man is going to do to you, being a young boy in his house in a whole different state? And mind you, he didn't tell his parents, right? So they don't even know where he really is for spring break. He has more reasons to be telling the truth. And this is quite damaging because he gave exact detail by detail about the scuffle that happened when he went to go capture the wife and everything, how he used that he was being a package was being delivered while he was up there early in the morning. He knew too much stuff, too much stuff about what actually, happened with Venus for him not to be not telling the truth. So even though the defense is trying to use the whole he's a liar and please throw out his testimony, no, it's not going to happen. That's what I believe. But we'll go on.
Up this claim, they also reminded the jury that Ricky only testified because he made a plea deal with the prosecution. This deal dropped his charge of conspiracy to commit murder to a lesser charge of conspiracy to commit manslaughter.
Thank you. That's all I have here.
With no witnesses called by the defense, it was now time for the closing arguments.
Defense rests. We're ready for closing argument.
The prosecution felt that the evidence spoke for itself and reiterated the main points of their case. On the other hand, the defense claimed that the prosecution was lacking the right evidence to prove Doug killed Venus. They reminded the jury that without a body, there was, without question, reasonable doubt, and that Doug should be found not guilty.
What evidence of that kind in this case do you have to demonstrate to you that Venus Stewart is dead?
They argued that if Doug was about to commit a murder, why would he walk around the Van Wert Walmart in high-key Hawaiian shorts, asking for assistance from Walmart employees?
Is he trying to hide things? He's wearing Hawaiian shorts, asking people where things are. Does that sound like somebody who's going to use it in a crime? What evidence have they shown you that a shovel was used in the killing of Venus Stewart? They haven't. They've tried to make you think they have all this evidence, but they don't. And they haven't proved their case. And you have a duty to do. And that's to find Doug Stewart not guilty.
Following a hard-fought legal battle, it was time for jury deliberations.
On the record, the People versus Stewart, the jurors indicated they've reached a verdict.
On March 11th, 2011, after only 3 hours, the jury found Doug Stewart guilty of first-degree murder, premeditated murder, and conspiracy to commit first-degree premeditated murder. At his sentencing, Doug continued to maintain his innocence.
I'm innocent. I did not do these crimes.
Regardless of what Doug wanted the court to believe, his conviction was set in stone, and the judge did not go easy on his sentencing.
I'm sentencing the defendant to life in the Michigan Department of Corrections without the possibility of parole.
After receiving his sentence, he was escorted to the Saginaw Correctional Facility to serve his time. Ricky, who pled guilty to the lesser charge of conspiracy to commit manslaughter, was sentenced to 1 year in county jail.
Authorities say that he helped Doug Stewart kill his wife. This afternoon, Ricky Spencer was sentenced for his crime.
Today's sentencing actually ended with one of Venus Stewart's family members yelling at Ricky Spencer as he walked out of the courtroom, asking Spencer if he would come help them search for Venus Stewart's body. Just gives you an idea of how emotional it was here in the courthouse all day. Ricky Spencer spoke actually before he was sentenced. He was choking back tears. He said that this is a nightmare that he can't wake up from. And Venus Stewart's mom, Teresa McComb, also spoke to the judge before Spencer was sentenced. Venus Stewart's family wanted him to get more time in jail than the prosecution's deal that they agreed to, which is no more than a year in county jail.
Despite these sentences, there was still another chapter of this case that was unresolved.
We're just going to keep looking. I know she's out there somewhere, buried. I just hope he would tell us, but I don't think he's going to give up that power.
Not long after Doug's trial, the search for Venus's body was back in full swing.
Going off of cell phone calls Doug Stewart made around the time his wife disappeared, searchers tell us they're focusing their efforts on this circle, a 5-mile radius in Kalamazoo County. But there's still a lot of land to cover, so they've been putting signs up in this area looking for help. But
somebody has been taking them down a couple hours after we put them up. That's why we've been up there three weekends in a row. Why would somebody now take the posters down? We don't understand. We're very confused.
Confused, but willing to continue, they say, until they find what they're looking for.
The community was perplexed as to who would want to take down Venus's missing posters, until they caught the ones responsible red-handed.
Why are you taking those down? Give them back to me. Give them back.
I wanted to tell you, we saw Doug. He's doing great.
Murdering.
Is better in his life.
Oh, in prison? It does good for him, huh?
He's really sorry about what's happening with the posters, and he hopes you find her.
Oh, that was good.
He did. He said he hopes you find her. And you know what? He said you should ask
actually be putting the pressure on Ricky if you want to find anything.
We went to Doug Stewart's parents' house to ask them what's going on, and for the first time, they broke their silence about the case, their son, and those signs.
Sure, they put up nasty letters, so we took them all down.
The Stewarts gave us some of the signs they admit
Yeah,
they
you're
tore
correct.
down. There's
And
no
good to
law
see
in
you.
St. Joseph
Thank you for
County
coming
about
by.
putting up or taking down signs like these. The Stewarts told us they don't object to the search for Venus, but do have a problem with what else is on some of those signs.
We told them, I said, if I knew for a fact that she was dead, I'd be more than willing to go out and help them look or do anything. But I said, where do you want us to look? What do you want us to do?
The Stewarts told us they still can't believe their son was found guilty.
I can't see him doing something like this, too. I don't know how he can do something like this, but he loved her dearly.
But after a trial and conviction, Venus Stewart's family says that's ridiculous.
There's no doubt at all in the back of your mind that, Venus isn't, in Texas somewhere, or just that she didn't just run away.
No, she wouldn't leave those kids for 2 hours, let alone this long. She would never put her mother through this, or her father. Never. Not a doubt in my mind.
Although this family feud was throwing a wrench in the gears, it would take more than a couple of defensive parents to stop the community's search efforts. 7 years passed with no notable progress in finding Venus. Tragically, Larry McComb, Venus's father, died from cancer during this time. Throughout the year of Larry's death, detectives continued to visit Doug in prison. And on one of these routine visits, Doug's demeanor completely changed. He was asked if he was finally ready to come clean, and he responded by saying that hypothetically, he could take the detectives to Venus's body. But he had a list of demands for his cooperation. Among those demands were certain perks, including being able to teach in prison, joining the K-9 program, and being able to attend his parents' funerals in the future. Oh, and one more thing. An Xbox. The proper authorities agreed to most of these demands, including the Xbox, so a satisfied Doug was now willing to cooperate. Doug led the authorities to the exact location of her body. He wrapped her up in a tarp and buried her in a wooded area just miles from her parents' home.
It's deep in these woods where Doug Stewart says he buried his wife's body after murdering her 8 years ago.
Why do you think right here? Because I put a bunch of fallen stumps right here. And that tree looks really cool. It's either there or there.
Okay. He explains with little outward emotion how he picked this location to hide his wife's body. Doug Stewart led police down a 2-track about 20 miles southeast of Kalamazoo. It was 12 miles north of where Venus Stewart was last seen alive. Police later confirmed the remains are those of Venus Stewart.
I mean, it's got to be right here. Yeah. Okay. It's got to be.
While out in the field, Doug sat down for a news interview where he spared no details.
This was single-handedly
This is truly sickening. He is a disgrace. He is a disgrace to the uniform. He is a disgrace to the Marines. He's a vile, evil son of a gun. And what's so bad about this is that he waited until his parents' passing before he said, okay, now I'll tell you where this woman's body is, because he couldn't face his parents. His parents is out there still advocating for him, tearing down Venus's signs in the neighborhood to say, have they seen her? And he waited until he can't look in his parents face to face before he actually told the truth of exactly what he did. Had this woman's remains out there in some cold, dark woods for 8 years, guys. 8 years. Her family couldn't find peace and rest and have her rest for 8 years. And what did he want? He still wanted a Xbox to play online and things and that was the trade-off of finding this woman's body. Like, I know they did it because they wanted to, really put Venus at peace. But it's just like, how dare you, and curse you, this horrible person, like curse you, because you still think that you deserve little pleasantries off of the fact that you took somebody's life, and that's the trade-off. But we had to go that low and stoop to your level once again just to make sure that this woman and her family has peace. This is This is hurtful. This is a terrible thing. And then now that he's sitting up here, he wants to do a tell-all and think that he's going to become some author, some author of books about how he killed his wife while he's in jail. I'm this is making me sick to my stomach. Really, it really is.
The worst thing that I could and will ever do in my entire life. I loved her. I couldn't handle it. It got to the point where I thought I was never going to see my
Thank you,
children again. I
Robin.
just
I
couldn't see another way
appreciate
out.
you.
I can't
Appreciate you for the
understand my
super
mindset
chat,
back
and
then.
thank you so
It
much.
was almost like I was on a mission. I did lie in wait. She did come out. I did put her in a choke maneuver. She passed out. I sat there for a minute, maybe two, staring at my best friend, passed out in my lap. I didn't have a plan.
Although Doug says he had no plan, he had already plotted her murder and found a plot of dirt in a very remote field to bury her body. And that's where Venus met her demise.
I batted her arms down. She saw it coming, and I batted them down with my right hand, and I struck her with my left. She didn't hit the ground before I started apologizing, and I almost threw up. There was so much blood. She didn't say anything. She collapsed down to the ground. 20 seconds later, her eyes closed. I didn't know what to do. I can't believe I did what I did. I will never forgive myself.
Over 8 years after Venus's death, she was finally given a proper funeral, buried next to her father. Although this provided some closure, it is likely that those who were close to Venus will never fully heal. As for Doug, he now resides at the Saginaw Correctional Facility and is only allowed to play offline sports games on his Xbox for 30 minutes per day.
He got in too much. I think he really got in too much help and assistance with this. Like, there should be no reason why this man got an Xbox. This man is now still getting visitation rights with his children. He was able to actually do an interview and be a part of the canine unit, and he got too much stuff after committing this crime, this gruesome crime against his quote unquote best friend, that he had no problem strangling and burying her body and keeping her body buried and not saying anything for 8 years so her family couldn't have peace. And then you manipulated a poor boy who probably is having social issues in school. You manipulated him to help you with this. And then you did it because, of course, you was going to try to lead it on that he would be more accountable. Do I think that he deserved a little bit more time? Yes, I do. I do believe that the young man deserved a little bit more time. I think that he at least deserved about like 2 to 3 years. That's my opinion. But he did at least serve 1 year, and he really did help. He definitely helped the prosecutors be able to convict the right person that actually took Venus's life. So I'm really happy about that. But serve him right. That just broke my heart. It really, really did. It really broke my heart. He doesn't care at all. He has no remorse. You're right, Gia. He doesn't have no remorse at all. And I don't feel sorry for him at all either. He is a disgrace. He is a disgrace on putting on a uniform and everything. He's a disgrace for his poor parents, right? Because even though it seemed like they were heartless and they didn't really care about Venus, they did, but they loved their son. And to put them in that while they were still backing you nonetheless, no matter what, and you wait until after they pass to be like, okay, now I'm going to tell the truth. It's like, it's sorry for them too, you know? This is just a horrible person who does not care about anybody and who he affects and who he hurt. He doesn't care at all. Thank you, Melody. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate you. So she says this shows how much the system don't value women. Traded her body for Xbox and privilege. I definitely do say that they need to do better when it comes down to the value of women. That situation was kind of quite horrible. All the information lies to that, but because that was the only way that they can possibly do is to continue to trade with him so they can at least get her remains. That's just horrible. It's unfortunate it led to that, right? All right, so the next case that I have for you guys is that there was a crazy ex-boyfriend apparently who had committed unaliving against his for love. So we're gonna look into that and see how this looks.
Taking an interest in other guys, and it hurts. I'm jealous.
I told you I was already done.
You're not listening to me.
Very evident that you are stalking me.
Dude, give me a lawyer. Take me home. You pick. I didn't do shit to her. What are you talking about? I'm so scared. I know you are. I know you are.
On May 19th, 2020, at exactly 11:06 a.m., a distressing 911 call was received by the Kenosha County Sheriff's Office.
Kenosha 911, what's the address for emergency?
So I was doing a wellness check on a good friend of mine that I was dating, and I found it weird because I haven't talked to him for like 24 hours. And I just went to his house, and his screen door is wide open, and I just pulled the
okay, were you able to see inside?
Yeah, I pulled the blinds back, and there's blood all over the floor in the living room. And
Can you see him at all anywhere?
I didn't go any further. Oh my God. Sorry. Something's not right. That's not normal.
Patrol officers were first to arrive at 3709 15th Street in Kenosha, Wisconsin. They were met by Sadie Beecham, the same woman who had called 911. Sadie told them that this was the residence of 40-year-old Rosalio Gutierrez, her new romantic partner. She had met Rosalio through Facebook's online dating feature a few months earlier. The last time she heard from him was a text message that he had sent 2 days before, on the evening of May 17th, saying that he had planned on stopping by a friend's house. After 2 days of radio silence, she decided to check up on him to make sure he was okay. When she arrived, she noticed that both of his vehicles were parked in the driveway and that the patio door was wide open. She called for Rosalio, but he did not answer. She then peered through the door and noticed a large pool of blood on the living room carpet. She immediately dialed 911. When asked if there was anyone she knew who would want to hurt Rosalio, she outed her ex of 12 years and father of her children, 41-year-old Zachariah Anderson. The two had been broken up for 6 months, and Zach had been stalking her ever since. Once Sadie provided her statement to the police, the officers then proceeded to enter the house through the patio door. There was blood all over the room, even on the ceiling. While inspecting the blood on the carpet, investigators noticed that the stain was oddly shaped. Right in the center, where the carpet should be the most saturated, there was no blood. Detectives considered the possibility that the victim's body might have been wrapped in an area rug and then carried out of the residence. There were no apparent signs of a forced entry and no valuables missing from the home, suggesting that this was not a burglary, but rather a personal attack. Police made efforts to track down
So you just have to realize that the way how everything is set up, there doesn't seem no forced entry, anything. It doesn't seem like it was no form of robbery, and it doesn't even seem like it was any form of like, a fighting back or tension that went on, like something like the table drop or something that lets you know that there was some type of fighting that occurred. It just seemed that the way how the blood spattered was all around this all around near the carpet, near the couch, but there was this little corner, this little piece of space that had no traces of blood. That lets them know that this whatever the body is or was wrapped into some type of rug, some type of carpeting, and it was moved and carried that way, and that's how we have traces on other outside of the part. So yes, when I said that these things are personal, that's how personal things look. When you don't see no forceful entry and something like that, most of the time they will think that this can be a personal situation. There are situations where you could see someone kicking the door or something like that, and that could have been someone who's personal to you, but there was a lot of things that's showing that this person actually knew this person and this person was welcomed into the home. But let's go on.
Rosalio's phone, but it appeared to be turned off. Additionally, there had been no recent transactions recorded on Rosalio's bank cards. At around 4:30 p.m. on May 19th, the same day that Rosalio was reported missing. Sadie was brought to the Kenosha County Sheriff's Office for an interview. Sadie explained that when she told her daughter Olivia that Rosalio was missing, her immediate reaction was to divulge several shady secrets about her father, Zach.
She's 12. 12? Yeah, and she kept saying, Mom, I know stuff, Mom. And I'm just like...
She wouldn't tell you that?
Please wait. Well, she told me about the registration. She told me about the videotaping, and she told me to change my password. She told me that he hacked into her school computer. She told me, he can hack. Then she told me on the drive here that he can pick locks. It's very narcissistic.
Yeah. Manipulating.
A good example of Zach being manipulative occurred on Olivia's 12th birthday, just 2 months earlier. On that day, Zach told Olivia that he had a surprise for her and told her to get in the car. He then took her to a vantage point outside of Sadie's house and told her to look in the window. To Olivia's surprise, another man, who she would later know to be Rosalio, was in the house. Zach then said, "Watch this." He exited the vehicle, went up to Rosalio's truck, broke in, and stole his vehicle registration. The day after this incident, Zach told Sadie he was having premonitions that she was seeing another man.
At some point, he rattled off his name, and he's like, I see Rosalio Gutierrez. Yeah, that's his name. That's it. He's Mexican, and he described him perfectly. He was telling me that he had all these premonitions of me, the visions, that he didn't actually videotape me, but he had visions that.
So that's a lot of information. So this guy had the audacity to use his daughter to go scoping out and stalking an individual, going to his property, destroying his property, looking in his property and stuff like that. And you had the audacity to do that with your teenage daughter. That's kind of crazy. That's some real crazy information. But let's go on. Let's see if the mom have anything to do with what is going on.
This was happening, and this usually happens in a breakup, he said.
And this was at the birthday party?
This was after Olivia left and we were outside talking, yeah.
Eventually, Olivia told Sadie about the late night trip to spy on her and Rosalio.
She's like, you should probably tell your friend to do something because Dad took his registration out of his truck. And I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, how do you know? She's like, because I saw it. And he's not planning on giving it back. He said he was going to maybe have him followed for fun or something like that. So then I told Rosalio, but now he knows where you live. And he's like, well, I'll just probably keep my doors locked.
Sadie spent the rest of this interview giving multiple in-depth anecdotes of Zach's controlling behavior, including a time that he recruited Olivia for an espionage operation against her mother.
We all went over to my friend Becky's house. As we were leaving, I lifted up the blanket and I find the burner phone next to Olivia. And I'm like, what are you doing with that phone? And she's like, well, you're not supposed to know that I have it. And I'm like, why? What? And she's like, well, Dad wanted me to record you. I'm like, doing what? She's like, anytime you got upset or you yelled or anything, he wanted me to record you. He's trying to take us from you, Mom. I'm like, okay.
At this point, Olivia was allowed to enter the room to see her mom.
Boy, that is a lot of information. This the dad was a full-on stalker, and he enlisted his own daughter to help him stalk her mother and videotape her mother and stuff like that. Like, you really have to think about the psyche of an individual that would do that. If one of the reasons is that you want to protect your children, how are you protecting your children by enlisting your children to do, crimes with you, to stalk the mother, videotape her without her consent? I don't necessarily remember what state it is, but in most states, you have to get consent by both parties to be videotaped or recorded, right? There's certain states that you only need one person to agree, and the other one is a given consent if you continue to have a conversation with them. But there is some states that both parties have to agree to be recorded, a consent to that. So it's just very alarming that he would go this low. But let's go on.
This is too much. This is way too much, babe. This is way too much.
Why don't we call Dad? Because he wants me to check in with him every day. And what if there's like background noise that we can hear or something? But it's a good idea because then if someone is in the background, then you can hear like them going, or you can hear them scream or something.
I don't think Dad is with him, sweetheart.
Where do you think he is?
Don't know. And maybe not even alive anymore. That scares the out of me.
We have more than enough to charge stalking, okay? And I think we should proceed with that.
Is there a way that I could call my father? I mean, like, not investigating anything, but like, to see if like you could hear anything in the background of it?
Yeah, we're not gonna.
Like that.
We're not gonna do that right now.
I'm so scared.
I know you are. I know you are. Why don't you give Mom a hug, huh? Yeah.
Following this interview, authorities arrested and charged Zach for stalking and harassment, as well as coercing a minor. They confiscated his phone, and he was brought into the interrogation room for questioning.
So we're investigating a case of stalking involving your children's mother, Sadie. Sure. All right. So that's what we want to talk to you about. Okay. Can you kind of tell me what's going on? What's up with your guys' relationship? What's been happening, going on?
Zach told the detectives that Sadie had always been a great partner and mother up until about 6 months ago. Out of nowhere, she became a wild card, going out to bars, making major accusations against Zach, and dating a plethora of random men. He then admitted to going over to her house one night and personally seeing her with one of these men.
Okay. How did you know there was someone else there?
Premonition, a weird feeling when I talked to her, you know.
Who was it?
Huh?
Who was it?
Some Mexican guy. Did you take pictures? No. You take video? No. Take audio recording? No. Nothing. No. So you had the same bullshit accusations? No, I didn't.
What did you hear?
Nothing. I heard, saw them laughing, saw them, doing their thing or whatever the hell, and okay. They had the music on and they're doing whatever they do.
The detectives started confronting Zach with some of the claims Olivia and Sadie made about him, but he seemed to have an answer for everything, even making his own accusations against Sadie.
Sadie was slapped in the face to discipline her when she was yelling.
So here's the thing. This is what's going to make him have a hard time, right? You pretty much admitted to stalking, okay? You admitted that you was going over there, you was watching. You said that you had you had a idea or feeling that she was talking and dealing with someone. If you're not dealing with that woman anymore, why are you watching her whereabouts? Why do you care to know who she's dating? Unless these guys are around your children a lot of times and you're hearing stories from your children, hey, I met this new guy or something like that, then maybe that is a conversation that you need to have with the other partner about who they have around your children. That is your right. But that's not what you're doing, sir. You didn't have any one-on-one communications with Sadie about, hey, I know that you out here dating and whatever not. We just need to discuss about which ones are serious and which ones are not serious. We might want to keep the traffic of who you're dealing with away from our kids. You have not explained that to any of the detectives. You're explaining to the detectives of all the moves that you made to find out who she's around, even to the point where you can identify one of the guys as being ethnicity of Mexican. And then now you want to go on to alluding to Sadie being abusive to your daughter. That does not have nothing to do with you stalking her around her premise, or even know the guys that she's dealing with, what their identity is and what vehicles they have. It has nothing to do with it, and it makes you look quite guilty. But let's go on.
She stands the boys up against the wall and hits them on their arms and legs, so it looks like they're fighting and stuff like that. And then she calls me and she's got the boys in the background, owie, 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 getting hit by mom. And I'm like, I'm not hitting them. I'm not taking the blankets away at night. If I put my kids to bed, I'll just lay down with them.
What does this whole thing have to do with putting a cell phone somewhere that night?
So what happens is I give one of my old phones so she can record what's going on. So I have some evidence. And then so yes, there are cell phones, but I didn't put a cell phone anywhere for that purpose. I gave it to my daughter to record when she's being abused or when the boys are being abused. As far as her stories or what's going on, I'm not hacking her cell phone. I'm not hacking her email. I'm not hacking her shit. I'm not stalking her. There's some things that I check. I would love to catch her, getting high with her boyfriend just so I could say to the court, I deserve custody of my kids because this is how she spends 3 days a week. My kids shouldn't be taken to the bar. And it's just a bloody mess,
As Zach worked to paint Sadie as an abuser and his own daughter as a pathological liar, the detectives felt that his claims weren't adding up. They then asked him to recount his activity over the past 48 hours, a question he seemed to struggle with.
I'm tired as fuck, man, and you're asking me, and I'm trying to not blur the days.
You remember everything in detail for the last 4 months, dude.
No, I don't remember everything. I remember some things. I remember the gist of things more than anything. I'm not a detailed guy. I gotta write things down, keep a little journal and shit.
Where's that?
So now you can start to see that he's getting combative when it starts to be lead back up to what was your activity of what you was doing during this particular time. Now he doesn't know, he has amnesia, but he could tell everything in detail what was occurring with Sadie and his daughter for the past 4 months. And then now he's saying, oh, I'm not really keeping tabs or anything. I just write, very important details down in a journal, in a book. And that's not, it doesn't read well with the detectives or the investigators because of the simple fact is if 1 minute, if you're going to be very detailed and getting down information, and this is something that like a history that's been happening so far for the past 6 months with your estranged wife, then you will keep up with it, right? You will keep every detail. You will keep every detail of what you was doing. The whole situation of having cell phones, and now you're saying that you didn't give a cell phone to your daughter so she can record the mom. You just gave a cell phone for her if any incident occur that she can record it for herself. There's a lot of things that's not matching up. And now he's actually getting combative behind it. So the detective is starting to not believe his story more and more as this investigation start going on. Hello, Daniel Palm. Good to see you. Thank you for stopping by. Appreciate it. And just make sure everybody are hitting the like button, comment, and subscribe. Share out to anybody who's interested in these type of cases, and we will go on.
It's on my computer.
What computer is it?
The Apple, notebook, iPad, anything like that. I don't know how the fuck you'd be going for my journal on my computer. I'd be happy to show you. I'd be happy to send them to you or whatever, but it's almost like a threat about the computer, and that's peculiar to me. So give me a lawyer. Take me home. You pick. This is crazy. This is fucking nuts. I didn't do shit. I don't know what you want from me. This is crazy. I don't think I crossed any fucking lines.
All right. So what's going to happen is the officer's going to take you over across the street. 40 hours, you'll have a preliminary hearing. For
what?
Stalking. Office.
I didn't do shit to her. What are you talking about?
That's what's happening tonight.
This is fucking bananas, you guys.
All right.
For stalking? Get the fuck out of here. What the fuck?
Following this interrogation, officers went through Zach's phone and quickly discovered conversations between him and Sadie that were recorded without her knowledge or consent.
I just told you, it hurts. I'm jealous. I've confirmed that you've taken an interest in other guys, and I've painfully enough. I've
Already done.
Yep.
And I told you I was.
Yep, you're done. Great. And the guy that stole the mother of my child.
Buddy, he didn't steal anything.
Yeah, all right.
And I wasn't yours to fucking steal. Wasn't yours to steal.
You're not listening to me.
Evidence that you were fucking stalking me.
I'm not stalking you.
You did. Here, in the middle of the fucking night. You're lying to me.
Along with this audio recording, they also found a video from the night that he and Olivia saw Sadie and Rosalio together.
You take pictures? No. You take video? No.
Zach had blatantly lied to the detectives about taking this video. If he was willing to lie about this, perhaps he was willing to lie about having Rosalio's belongings as well. Authorities were able to obtain a search warrant for Zach's property in Mequon, Wisconsin, which was executed on May 21st, 2020. A still smoldering fire pit was found on the property, with burnt pieces of clothing, bleach bottles, and a pair of boots inside. While it's possible that these items belonged to Rosalio, there was no blood or DNA found on them, so there was no way to connect them to the crime. Zach's minivan was also discovered on the property. Upon inspecting the interior, they immediately noticed the smell of bleach, and that a section of the carpet from the back of the vehicle had been cut out. Also, on the rear doorpost, they found a minuscule speck of what appeared to be blood. Additionally, on the floor at the front.
See, these crimes of passion, it really ticks my nerves, right? Because they're going off of very heightened emotions. Obviously, he has not gotten over her. He still want to control her every move. He's jealous. He's stalking her. He hasn't his children stalk her. But one of the biggest things that this is crimes of passion is because how messy these individuals are when they commit crimes. You have certain people's item. The person that's missing item is in your possession. How do you have this person's items in your possession if you have never met this person? There has never been a meeting or you've been invited where this person was, but you formally met this person and got his name. There's no connections of y'all speaking at whatsoever, so there's no reason why you should have any of his items near you. Then on top of that, you leave items that can link you to something happening, something suspiciously happening right in your vehicle. You took out the back part of the vehicle because it had blood on it, so you removed that. You have Clorox and bleach in your car. The smell of it. Why do you have Clorox in your car? Now, I know there's some people, they go to the laundromat if they don't have a laundry in their house. And you bring things like that. You bring the clothing washer, you bring softener for the clothes, and you'll bring your bleach for your whites and stuff. But you don't have any showing of laundry or that you went to the laundry recently, but you have Clorox sitting in your car leaking. Like, there's just too many things that is adding up that makes you look really, really, really bad about this situation. It looks very suspicious. So I'm just talking about the messiness that happens behind these individuals. They really don't clean up as much as they think they are cleaning up. And they leaves a lot of evidence because these are things that they don't think that's evidence. One of the biggest evidence that you could possibly have is leaving the receipts of the items that you're going to use to commit a crime in your vehicle or in your home, in a dresser, things of that sort. Like, why are you leaving that there? But let's go on.
Front of the vehicle was a Walmart receipt which indicated the purchase of several items the morning after Rosalio's disappearance. These items included several personal hygiene products, 3 cans of sardines, 2 packages of hefty 13-gallon garbage bags, 2 boxes of latex gloves, and 2 containers of Clorox bleach wipes. The minivan was also transported to the Wisconsin State Crime Lab for forensic analysis. While investigators awaited the results, they visited the Walmart location found on the receipt. The store's surveillance footage confirmed that Zach had visited the Walmart during the early morning hours of May 18th. This footage shows Zach arriving at the store around 8 a.m. He is then seen walking up and down the aisles collecting the items from the receipt. After making his purchase with cash, he is seen exiting the building and running a stop sign as he drives away from the parking lot. Using Zach's cell phone GPS data, police confirmed that he traveled from the Walmart to a work site in the village of Cedar Grove, where he spent 3 hours working. Apparently, after that, all they know is that Zach claims to have stayed at his new girlfriend's house that night. His whereabouts between Cedar Grove and his girlfriend's house during this gap was unknown. Coincidentally, his worksite is about 5 miles away from a tree farm that his family owns in Random Lake, Wisconsin. Investigators suspected that this is where Zach went after working in Cedar Grove, potentially to bury Rosalio's body. This led police to obtain another search warrant, this time for the tree farm property. In order to thoroughly search such a large property, authorities brought in a plethora of reinforcements, including a K-9 unit, ATVs, the FBI, and drones. The dogs were quickly able to find another burn pit, and inside this burn pit were bone remnants. Unfortunately, this wasn't the bombshell evidence that investigators initially thought. The bones were examined and turned out to be the remains of a pig. Although the search team had hit hit a dead end. The crime lab was hard at work, and on May 29, 2020, the results were in. The results confirmed that the blood at Rosalio's home and the speck in Zach's vehicle matched Rosalio's DNA profile. This was a major breakthrough for the investigation, but without a body, prosecuting Zach would be especially difficult. So, police continued their investigation over the next 7 months, making a disturbing discovery along the way. On Zach's laptop, they found a folder labeled Rosalio Gutierrez. This folder contained photos of Rosalio, screenshots of online court records about him, photos of his business information, and electronic maps of his residence. With the mounting evidence against Zach, authorities felt confident proceeding with murder charges against him. On December 11, 2020, Zachariah Anderson was charged with the murder of Rosalio Gutierrez. Zach spent just over 2 years in prison leading up to his trial, and on February 28, 2023, his trial began. The prosecution came out swinging, delivering a captivating opening statement that told the jury exactly why they believed Zach was a calculated killer. They focused on Zach's controlling behavior, his history of manipulating his own daughter, and his obsession with Rosalio. On the other hand, the defense argued that the prosecution was portraying Zach as the bad guy, relying on weak evidence and withholding important details in order to support their narrative. They reminded the jury that there was a very limited amount of substantial evidence. There was no body, no weapon, no fingerprints, no witnesses, and ultimately no way to directly tie Zach to Rosalio.
So I knew that the defense was going to go with that. That's why it's very hard, guys, when you don't have a body when it comes down to these cases. This is why detectives work really hard to try to find a body, right? Because it can tell you a lot about what actually happened in this situation. When you don't have no body, it's really hard to tag someone to the situation. They have surveillance. They want to find out whether they can find you spotted near them. They have the tracking systems now that comes in our vehicles as well as in our cell phones. That also helps them now because they have the right to collect that information. They can subpoena for it. They can get up to at least 10 days of text messages, tracking, emails, you name it, on any of your appliances, and to skim through it to see what happened, to paint a picture, right? So that's why they have to move very quickly. They have to move very fast in these type of situations. I'm not buying it because the simple fact is, even though the defense attorney is trying to state that they can't really put them near each other, or he was around him, whether or not if he knew him or anything like that, but it's damaging to have a whole folder of videos, this guy's information, his location and everything on your computer. That's why he was touchy go with the investigators when he was being asked those questions, interrogated. He was very reluctant to not give his computer. He was like, oh, I need a lawyer after that, once they talked about his computer and stuff, because he knew that he's been following and stalking this man just like he was following and stalking his ex-girlfriend, ex-wife. So let's go on a little bit. Oh, hi, Anna. Hi, Anna. Nice to meet you. Shout out to Russia. Thank you for coming in and stopping by. Let's go on.
Rosalio's death. They also suggested that the investigation was botched because detectives honed in on Zach the entire time, instead of investigating several other reasonable leads. After the opening statements, the prosecution called a man named Marquand Washington, a fellow inmate of Zach's, who claimed that Zach had actually confessed to him.
I was laying there and I was reading my book and I heard him shout in his sleep before he woke himself up.
And what did he shout that you heard?
He said, die, 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 motherfucker. I told him to look me in my eyes and tell me that you didn't do it. And he jumped down from the bed and he looked me in my eyes and he said, I did it. He said, that's the reason I have the nightmares. I'm unable to sleep at night because I think about it all the time.
At some point, what nickname did you hear people address the defendant with occasionally?
A lot of times people would say Houdini or Zach Houdini, or, just telling me about who my cellie was.
And did the defendant talk about why people were calling him Houdini and describe, what that was about to you?
Yes, he said they called him Houdini because of his case, basically because he made a body disappear, they say, and everybody called him Houdini because of it.
What did the defendant tell you about how he committed the case that he's charged with and what the circumstances?
This is very damaging. Another a fellow inmate, you're actually the one you're in the cell with, is now confirming that you did do it, that he had a conversation with you about it, and the reference of why people on your cell block call you the Houdini. In this situation, a lot of other cellmates, if they're offered any time taken away off their own sentences, or even some type of deal that they could work out where they could drop it down, the prosecutor will help to do that because they need this case to go in. They need this case to win, right? So, I mean, these guys are not going to be reluctant to not say anything to you, right? They're doing time already. They've been in there for a while. They just want to do whatever they can possibly do to help them to come home. So if that's them telling on you, that's going to happen. That's going to happen. Let's go on.
He said that he had seen this person, and he said he stabbed him, and he blacked out. He said he stabbed him, and I just blacked out. And he said he eventually wrapped the body up in garbage bags and got rid of the trash. He threw the trash out. Okay. And I asked him, what did he mean by that? And I said, what, like dumpster or trash? And he said, once it's gone, it's gone.
Why would he end this person's life?
He said to get back at his kid's mother. You know, he was angry with a bunch of different things, but he said she kind of bragged about this other guy and that she was happy. He didn't really want his kids around that.
As compelling as Marquand's story was, the defense suggested that he was only testifying against Zach in order to reduce his sentence.
You agree to provide substantial assistance to the government, and then they decide whether or not it's substantial, right?
I believe so.
And then they decide if it is substantial in their view, that they will file a motion with the court to go below the mandatory minimums, right?
Well, I believe so.
And unless they file that motion, you're going to get the 10 years, right?
I believe so.
So any cooperation you provide, whether it's a debrief in front of agents or testimony in live court, it better be happy, it better make the government happy, or they're not going to file that motion, right?
I believe so.
After shining a light on Marquand's potentially deceptive testimony, the prosecution then called Zach's daughter Olivia to the stand. Due to being a minor, the cameras did not capture her statement, but the audio was still rolling. Many people watching this trial were sympathetic for a young girl in such traumatic circumstances, but there were multiple moments in her testimony that nearly led to a mistrial. For example, during a line of questioning about a gun that Zach owned, Olivia lashed out at the defense.
I don't handle guns like that.
You said guns like that. What do you mean?
Meaning, I don't know. Meaning, I'm not familiar with guns like that, but I can tell you there was one.
What color was it?
Black.
Was it long, short? Can you describe with your hands?
It was short. It was probably a pistol of some sort. I'm not sure.
Okay, where did you see it?
It was at the Mech 1 house.
So you say that this unregistered gun is in California to law enforcement. Up until today, did you ever say anything about this gun being in Wisconsin?
When I had talked about this gun, there were other traumatic events going on in my life, so this isn't...
You don't have to defend your answer.
I'm trying not to defend it. It's what happened. It's legitimately what happened. Like, there were other things going on, and this isn't something that's related even to this situation.
But if you listen, don't take this as a scolding. I'm saying listen carefully to the question and just try to answer just the question. And if there's more to be gone into, the lawyers will.
This is very brutal for this young girl, right? Because the incident that they're talking about has already been almost a year in. She's a teenager. She's going through whatever is going on in her social life, her own social life, school, thinking about her future, and then now this whole potential murder case that her father might actually go to prison, for life over. And then on top of that, you don't think that she doesn't feel overwhelmed that she could be ratting her father out, but then she don't want this innocent guy who lost his life not to get justice. And then she also probably believed that her mother was actually really happy with this guy too. So she's literally in a whole bunch of emotion. This situation is very, very stressful. And then her to actually, take the stand and knowing that cross-examination, they're going to rip you to shreds. Like I said, it's unfortunate. That's what they do with cross-examination. The defense attorney is supposed to do their best to try to help their client, and the prosecutor has to do their best to try to convict the client. So they're going to, when it comes down to you being a character witness or just a witness for whatever information that you can give to this case, they're going to rip you to shreds. And I'm feeling so sorry for this young lady.
So usually cover it.
I was threatened with that gun, for your information.
They are close.
It was later clarified to the jury that Olivia's claim of being threatened with the gun was in no way related to the case and was to be disregarded. The trial took place over 16 days, and both the prosecution and the defense put forth very compelling arguments. The prosecution would stick to their guns and state that the speck of blood found in Zach's vehicle was more than enough evidence to throw Zach away. On the other hand, the defense would challenge the state's experts, pointing out that the so-called speck of blood was not even confirmed to be blood. The sample was so small that the crime lab chose not to do any tests to determine the kind of human tissue it was. Put simply, the only piece of physical evidence that the prosecution was grasping onto was not reliable. On March 20th, 2023, the trial concluded and the jury was sent to deliberate. After just 2 days, a verdict was reached.
In the rate of matter, State of Wisconsin versus Zachariah Joseph Anderson, as to the first count of the information, we, the jury, find the defendant, Zachariah Anderson, guilty of stalking Sadie Beecham as charged. As to the second count of the information, we, the jury, find the defendant, Zachariah Anderson, guilty of stalking Rosalio Gutierrez as charged. As to the third count of the information, we, the jury, find the defendant, Zachariah Anderson, guilty of intentional homicide, 4th degree, as charged. As to the fourth count of the information, we, the jury, find the defendant, Zachariah Anderson, guilty of hiding in court as charged.
Zachariah Anderson was found guilty on all counts. On May 16th, 2023, he received his sentence.
It is the sentence of the court that your custody be committed to the Department of Corrections for confinement in the Wisconsin state prisons for the remainder of your life. This sentence is consecutive to and not concurrent with the sentences on the other 3 counts.
While the majority of people tuning into this trial were happy with the outcome, there is a considerable amount of people who sincerely believe that Zach is innocent. For example, here is an excerpt from freezachariahanderson.org. His guilty verdict was a true miscarriage of justice created by a multi-layer system of failures, including a false accusation, a poor police investigation jaded by confirmation bias, a corrupt district attorney, a media campaign to taint the potential jury pool, a judge unfit to stand trial, and a handful of witnesses willing to perjure themselves for their own gain. Zachariah Anderson is currently appealing his conviction.
Andy.
He resides in the Department of Corrections, Wisconsin State Prison. The Kenosha Police Department continues to look for the remains of Rosalio Gutierrez. As of today, there is a $10,000 reward for anybody who helps find him.
Yeah, so that situation was really crazy. I don't know. Y'all put in the chat. Do y'all think that justice was served, or do you think that it was something that should have been a mistrial, and because they didn't have enough information? I think that the reason why the prosecutor won the case is due to the simple fact they had enough evidence to know that this man was stalking this particular man. They have enough information from the daughter stating that he asked her to take pictures and videos and recording of when that man was around the mother. They also show that he was controlling against the mom, as well of who she was dating, that damaging call between the mom and him while she admits and he admits that he is stalking her and that she is done, that she's over this relationship. And then the simple fact that he said that he was supposed to be, have a whole new girlfriend, but yet you're still stalking and meddling with your ex-girlfriend. So I just think there was just too much informations outside of the body that made the prosecutor's job easy for them to get this conviction. I just say it's bad, like poor to the guy, because the simple fact is that nobody is found, right? So that means that his family don't get to lay him to rest. Nonetheless, whether if this guy did it or not, it's just unfortunate that somebody lose their life just for just dating someone. And, dating someone and trying to get in a relationship with someone, they lose their life and now their family can't even lay them to rest. It's just horrible. And I feel prayers to that young girl too, because it's like, that's not easy. You know what I'm saying? You love your parents, right? You love your mom, you love your dad. But now you put in a situation where you feel like you might be betraying your father, betraying your parents, or people are looking at you crazy. That's a lot of healing and mental trauma that young lady is going to have to get therapy going forward with, So it's just unfortunate, really. Yeah, I don't know why X don't move on, but I'll just let you know that when you're a stalker and you're doing stalking activities like this man was doing, that is telltale signs that you do not have a healthy, stable mind, okay? And it is criminal. It can be criminal when things all said and done, when subpoenas get filed and they see certain information that is not public information, right, about an individual in your possession. That is not going to look good if it ever has to go to the court. So just keep that in mind, right? Say no to stalking. It's not worth it. All right. So I have the last but not least, I have one more case for you guys. We're going to go over it, and then I'm going to let you good folks go for the rest of the day. This one has to do with OnlyFans model. So there's been a lot of talk in the town about OnlyFans models and situations. So let's get into it, right?
On October 18th, 2019, at precisely 8:45 a.m., the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office received a chilling 911 call.
911, what is your emergency?
911. I woke up on my boyfriend here. He was outside this morning. He was cold. He was just drinking. He's cold. I found him outside. The kitchen's a bloody mess. He's not breathing.
Why is the kitchen a bloody mess? Hello?
I don't know. I need paramedics.
All right, stand in line. I'm going to connect you to fire rescue, okay?
One, two, three, four.
Delaware County Fire Rescue. What's the address of the emergency? And tell me what's wrong.
He is non-responsive.
First responders quickly arrived at the caller's residence at 9801 White Barn Way. Upon arrival, Hillsborough officers were met by 26-year-old Melissa Turner, who was covered in blood. She told first responders the blood was from administering CPR to the victim. She immediately led them to the back of the house where her fiancé, 25-year-old Matthew Trussler, was unresponsive and cold. He was lying face up by the swimming pool with multiple stab wounds and lacerations on his body. The medical unit arrived moments later, but sadly, Matthew was pronounced dead at the scene. Melissa watched as a sheet was laid over his body. Inside the home, there was a trail of blood drops that began in an office on the ground floor. Following the trail led the detectives right to the family room and then to the kitchen. The kitchen was an absolute bloodbath, with items knocked over and scattered all around the room, including a broken glass jar, multiple kitchen knives, and a switchblade. The blood trail then led to an open back window, continued into the backyard, and ended at Matthew's body. It was safe to say that a major struggle had taken place, and after bleeding out in the kitchen, Matthew used every ounce of life that he had left to escape through the window into the backyard, where he later succumbed to his injuries. All of the evidence was collected, which included a smartwatch that Matthew was still wearing and a home security camera that was installed in the hallway of the house. As a thorough search of the residence and surrounding area commenced, Melissa was brought into the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office for an interview.
How long have you been?
2.5 years. We're engaged.
Throughout the interview, Melissa provides bits and pieces of information about her and Matthew's life. Melissa was bullied as a teenager for being overweight, but as she transitioned into young adulthood, she began taking her health and wellness seriously and lost over 100 pounds. This newfound lifestyle gave her the confidence to begin sharing photos of her body anonymously through her Tumblr named Two Thorned Rose. She eventually realized that she could supplement her income if she could somehow monetize what she was doing. So, she became a self-proclaimed cam girl.
I am Two Thorned Rose. I'm a cam model. I'm an artist. I love fitness.
This was only meant to be temporary, but she was quickly able to quit her 2 part-time retail jobs, and the new business became a full-time gig. In order to maximize her profits, Melissa ended up finding her niche in horror-themed cosplay adult films. Melissa was good enough at her job to be making a substantial amount of money, but some of her fans believed that she would take things too far. One viewer stated that she shot some really crazy stuff, and that she was always into blood. In 2017, she met Matthew on Tinder, and the two quickly fell for each other.
Okay, so obviously this is a woman who obviously probably had a little problem socially, right? She was perceived as just the average regular girl. She grew into her looks, which is always going to happen. And I hope all these ladies and men understand y'all are going to grow into your looks. Some grow into them when they're early, and some have to wait later on in life, and they grow into their looks and they become more attractive, right? It's going to be different for everyone. But she grew into her looks later on and gained her confidence by becoming an OnlyFans model. And she was also able to become successful and make more money than what she would on a regular job. I'm thinking they're trying to allude that went to her head, right? That she enjoyed the money and the gore, because it seemed like a lot of her stuff on OnlyFans started to lead into gore and I don't know, like saintic rituals. It started to lead into that, but I think that was just a part of her niche. That's not necessarily something that she might be into, but that was definitely part of her niche for her OnlyFans account and her being an OnlyFans model. But they're trying to lead and pick up the picture that she started getting heavily interested into blood, gore, and stuff like that. Then she got very interested with the money, the type of money and the amount of money that she was making with OnlyFans. So let's go on.
After 2 years of dating, they were able to buy a house where they began building their life together. As romantic as this love story was, the detectives were more interested in the hours leading up to Matthew's death.
Can you take us back to yesterday? From the time you guys woke up and to kind of how we got here today.
Yeah. As much as I can.
The best that you can. That's all we're asking for.
Melissa told the detectives that the day before started like any other. She woke up at around 4:30 a.m. and worked until about 8 a.m. Afterwards, she and Matthew walked their dog, and then Melissa exercised in their garage while Matthew cleaned up around the house. They visited a Home Depot and then a Publix grocery store to grab lunch, which Matthew cooked at home. After sending some emails and doing some more cleaning, they ate dinner, ended the night with a few drinks, and played some card games.
That's what we would do on a night when we didn't have to get up and do anything the next morning. We had drinks. He always liked drinking. He was a drinker.
Would you say he had a drinking problem or no?
He had a drinking problem.
Okay.
His mom will tell you the same thing. He will admit it himself.
What about you?
Me? No.
Besides the alcohol last night, were there any drugs?
No.
We're not the drug police, so I'm just asking.
No, he would never touch any of that. Because that was a deal breaker for me, and he knew that. He knew if he touched anything like that again, that he would lose me.
Okay.
The peak of Matthew's drug abuse was in 2015. He then decided to get his life back together and move in with his brother. By the time Matthew met Melissa in 2017, Matthew was still clean.
That was my number one deal breaker with him.
And I'm assuming...
So, the drug police, he was not shy about it in his past when he was younger. He was into hard drugs.
Okay.
But it's been years since then because he knew that was my number one deal breaker. He touched it again. We were done. I didn't give a shit. That was it.
What time did you go to bed last night?
Like I said, we were having some drinks. But I remember getting really tired around 10 and I just wanted to go to bed. And 10:30-ish was when I remember, 10:30, 11 maybe, is when I remember going to curl up on the chair. Because I slept on that big chair that's in my little office area downstairs.
Apparently, Melissa slept in the next morning and woke up around 8:30 a.m.
I don't know. I normally don't sleep in. But whatever time, I remember waking up and I didn't see him around. I saw the kitchen was... I didn't see him outside at first. It was cold. I pulled him to the ground.
I know this must be very difficult for you.
It feels like a dream.
Or did you hear anything?
No.
Last night?
No.
Like in the night?
No.
What do you think happened?
I mean, you understand just from our standpoint, obviously, we weren't there last night. If you could just take your best guess of what you thought.
Okay, so the reason why it's not really registering to the detectives, not because that she doesn't know, it's just for the simple fact is, it seemed that it was a brutal attack that happened inside her house, okay? A brutal attack. Now, I know there's people who are heavy sleepers, right? And they can sleep with TV on, they can sleep when it's lightning, those things don't really bother them. But the simple fact is that the amount of blood that was found in a office, then the amount of bloodshed that was all over the kitchen, and then it was drips leading up to a window where he was trying to escape, where his body ended up falling right under the window, right next to the right on the patio next to the pool. You telling me that all those situations that's happening, I'm sure you heard a scream, a yell from help, or a pain, like someone being pain or stabbed, screaming because they got stabbed. You telling me that you didn't hear absolutely nothing and you went to bed between 10 or 10:30 to 11 and you didn't hear none of this? You said that you don't take drugs, but guess what? If you did take drugs, that would probably help your case a little bit. If you was really under, heavy influence of narcotics, then they could understand why you probably could sleep through that. But you said that you don't take drugs. You said that he took drugs, and he took drugs many years ago, but he's been clean and haven't taken drugs for a year, or you would have had left him. So you didn't say that you was well, she was drinking, right? Yeah, she did. Yeah, exactly, Tanya. So she was drinking too. She was drinking. But it just seems like a lot of the things that was happening, and for you not to even hear a scuffle or anything, nothing fall, nothing break, and then you have all these weapons, knives and stuff all around, scattered around, like that's why it's not convincing that she doesn't know what happened and what's going on. But let's hear the detectives go talk to her a little bit more.
What could have happened?
I don't know.
The detectives asked Melissa if there was a chance that Matthew's death could have been an accident.
He always told me he had a feeling he was going to die young.
What the detectives didn't know yet was that back at the crime scene, a medical examiner had arrived to evaluate Matthew's body. He had a defensive wound on his right forearm, a large laceration to his chest, a small cut to the right shoulder, and a large stab wound on his back. It was clear that Matthew's death was no accident.
Hey, Jen.
Do you have any injuries on your person?
No.
Any scratches or cuts or anything?
Yeah, I have a little cut. Right there.
And that's from what?
think it's from grabbing the glass. Wait.
You know what? Where?
I remember it was a hard rock glass, I believe, in the kitchen, and I think I picked up a piece of it on the floor.
Was there any fighting or arguing last night? Do you all have a history of any kind of fighting or arguing?
Not nothing. I mean, couples argue sometimes. We never really fought. We would argue.
So there was no arguing last night?
We were having a great time.
The detectives decided that now would be a good time for a break so that Melissa's injuries could be photographed and bandaged. DNA and fingerprints were also collected. During this time, they touched base with the investigators who had processed the crime scene. They learned about Matthew's defensive wounds and the stab wound to his back, ruling out the theory that Matthew could have been responsible for his own death. But there was more. While investigators were canvassing the area surrounding the crime scene, they discovered that one of the neighbors had a Nest surveillance camera which could see just over Melissa and Matthew's fence into their backyard. While this camera angle wasn't ideal, the camera also recorded audio, and an intense altercation was captured between Melissa and Matthew around 4 to 4:30 a.m. that morning. With this new piece of evidence uncovered, the second half of Melissa's interview quickly turned into a full-on interrogation.
Tell me about what happened around 4 o'clock this morning. Was there any arguing?
At 4 o'clock? Not that I know of.
Were you asleep at 4 o'clock this morning?
To my knowledge, yes.
8:45.
So this lady have completely lied. There was an argument. You heard him screaming. You heard her screaming. She's screaming, "What did I do?" after he was screaming. And then on top of that, she said about him dying. Like that was heard off another neighbor's camera. So that just believe how loud they really were. And the cracking of the glass. So now this has came into a full-on interrogation to this woman, right? They got to open up the wounds on her because obviously they know that she has not been truthful, and the way how she was playing it, how she just went to bed and there was no argument. We was drinking, everything was fine. It's completely different now with this new evidence. So now they're going to really dig into her to see if she's going to actually tell the truth. And they're going to later on drop on her that they have audio, not too good of video, but definitely audio of there was some form of altercation that happened between you and Matt last night. So let's look into this.
When the call came in, so you said about 20 minutes, maybe even if you lost track of time, say you wake up at 8. Any time between but at 11 last night to 8 this morning, did you have any argument?
No, not that I know of.
So we've been talking to the neighbors. There's cameras all over the neighborhood. There's Ring doorbell cameras and everything.
Okay.
Okay. Around 4 o'clock this morning, something happened at your house. That's why we're asking.
What were the neighbors saying? What?
It ain't what the neighbors are saying. It's what's on video. There's arguing coming from the house. It's a male and a female.
If it was at 4 in the morning, I will tell you right now, I did not stay up until 4 in the morning.
Although she initially sticks to her guns, the detectives are persistent and her story quickly begins to change.
The argument was him waking me up because he was a night person, as I've told you guys. Him staying up till 4 in the morning whenever he got drunk is not unheard of. I would say he woke me up. We got in an argument over that. Being up at 4 in the morning, drunk off your ass, wasn't doing anybody any good. And that was what the argument was about then.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, you do have a memory of what happened, right?
Yes.
At 4 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay.
Melissa chalks up the argument to her simply being upset about a drunk Matthew waking her up at 4 a.m. But considering the intensity of the argument captured on the surveillance camera, and of course Matthew's gruesome death, the detectives believe something much more explosive happened that Melissa was not divulging. So they continue pressuring Melissa to tell the truth, and it's not long before she shares a darker version of her story.
Talking about it more now, thinking back on it, this is from me grabbing a knife out of his hand. And I swear he'd never hit me, never laid a hand on me, even when drunk. I will not let his name go down like that. But I do remember pissing him off when I tried to get the knife out of his hand.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, my neck isn't from me.
Hi, Dessal. Good to see you. Thank you for
My
coming
jaw's
back.
sore, like I got hit. And I remember being thrown over the counter. He got pissed off, got a little more aggressive with what he was doing.
Okay, and how did you react?
I was scared at first. I'm not trying to be dumb about this. I'm a lawyer.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and conclude the interview at 14:06 hours.
As soon as Melissa asks for a lawyer,
She knows. She asked for a lawyer because she can't put on the waterworks anymore. She can't put on her acting skills from OnlyFans anymore. So now she's asking for a lawyer. And even though once she asked for a lawyer, the interrogation process is over, but she knows that she done said too much. She know that she done said things that they can definitely use against her, especially the simple fact that she was lying about what was happening, about her waking up to him looking like that, when now there's actual audio evidence, a video stating that you were up and you were alert at 4 o'clock in the morning and you were arguing with him. Then you said that you picked up broken glass when you was going into the kitchen to see what all this blood and all this stuff was coming from. But in fact, now you're saying that you had to grab a knife from Matt's hand and that's how you got that slice. It's going to be hard because think about it, the reason why she thought that she was going to get away with this is because she didn't think that there was no video or audio about what happened around 4 o'clock in the morning. And there was a reason why she tried to fake do CPR and call 911 saying that she's doing CPR to Matt's body, because guess what? If she's telling them that she's doing CPR, of course, Matt's DNA and blood is going to be on her body. So they will automatically remove that to the side. Like, yes, this is the reason why all this blood and stuff is on her, because she did CPR and she's trying to save his life, not because she was actually the killer. So do you see how strategic and smart that she was? Because she knew that if she would just put the blood on her originally, then and make it seem like she was trying to help him instead of actually being the aggressor trying to attack him, that they would throw that out. They wouldn't be like, oh, we're looking to see if there's any like skin under her nails or things of that sort. That's going to be there. She tried to save the guy's life. She's really, really, really sneaky. But let's go on.
the detectives conclude the interview. As Melissa sits alone in the interrogation room, she becomes paranoid and begins to panic.
This can't be my life. No. What is happening? Could you at least come in here and keep me company? I feel like I'm gonna fall apart. I can see you. Do I just get left in here now? Going to freeze me out? Can we please turn the AC off in here? Oh God, it's so cold. Am I not allowed a blanket or anything? We were going to Walmart today. We were going to get Halloween decorations. Oh.
Someone eventually comes back and they collect Melissa's clothes as evidence, and they bring her some McDonald's. Right after this, Melissa was arrested and charged with the second-degree murder of Matthew Trussler. In subsequent interviews with Matthew's family, they strongly denied the allegations made by Melissa regarding Matthew's mental health. The only negative thing they had to say was that Matthew had gradually grown distant from the family, which they believe was due to Melissa intentionally manipulating and isolating him. Thanks to Melissa's lucrative career.
Yeah, so I don't want to know, why is fast food the food of choice that they give these suspects in these cases. I do not know if it's not the suspects asking for McDonald's, Taco Bell, or Burger King. It's these detectives, all they want to do is just run to the fast food restaurant. I guess it's the quickest thing to give them, right? But the reason why they're gonna give her second degree murder is because it was not premeditated. It seemed like it was done in a fit of rage, so that's why you don't get first degree murder. But everything leads to that she definitely did this. Definitely, the defense attorney is gonna go with the self-defense stance that she was defending herself, and while even though it was horrible that Matt died this way, she has the right to defend herself. So this is what's going to happen. But I do believe that Matt was kind of being controlled by this woman. He enjoyed the type of money that she was making. She enjoyed the type of money she was making. She felt that she controlled the situation because she was the breadwinner in the household, which allowed her to basically, treat him a certain type of way, pick on him, scream on him, yell at him, as you heard in the audio. So I want to see how this plays out, because they're definitely going to go with the self-defense stance in this case. Let's go on.
Career, she was easily able to pay her bond. She then participated in a media interview professing her innocence and sharing her story.
We ended up struggling back and forth for the knife. I got my hand
You know what? You're absolutely
sliced
right,
open.
Newt. You're
And he had
absolutely right.
pushed me into the countertop. I had marks on my stomach from it. And then turned me around, and he had his hands around my throat. Losing him, losing his family that I loved as my family.
Melissa's trial began on February 14th, 2022. In their opening statement, the prosecution pointed to the fact that Melissa had dialed 911 4 hours after the incident, pretending to not know what had happened. They argued that Melissa's actions and behavior before and after the incident indicated that she was a calculated killer. Additionally, the prosecutors were adamant that her inconsistent statements were attempts to deceive authorities as well as downplay her involvement. Once she realized the detectives were onto her, she fabricated a narrative of self-defense. The defense argued that Melissa did in fact act in self-defense, and that Matthew's death was a result of his own aggressive behavior. They also suggested that the neighbor's surveillance audio was manipulated to amplify Melissa's voice, making it sound louder than it actually was.
So it could be that maybe one voice on the recording was not amplified, and that another voice on the recording was greatly amplified.
Throughout the course of the trial, all of the evidence.
So I told you that, like I said, I knew that the defense attorney was going to go with the self-defense, right? That was their best bet in this situation. She was the only one in the house with Matt at the time of this murder. She's the only one that has blood, his DNA, and also holding a weapon or having a weapon in her hand, a knife, right? She lied numerous times about her being asleep. Then they also led to the fact that she called 911 4 hours after this incident. So the reason why the prosecutors went with second degree, because that would most likely stick. The defense will automatically throw in the self-defense plea and say that this was not intentional. She did not wake up this morning or that the other day morning wishing to unalive Matt. This was not premeditated. This was not intentional in that way. It just was bad circumstances. This is a DV situation that just gone bad. So the prosecutors, they really want to make sure that she doesn't get away with it. So it was smart for them to go for second degree instead of first degree. And let's see how it goes.
Evidence was revealed to the jury. The crime scene photos, which showed the aftermath of a brutal attack on Matthew, the bloody knives, one of which they believed to be the murder weapon, and the surveillance footage with the audio of Melissa and Matthew's argument. On top of these items, they also presented footage to the court that was recorded by a motion-activated camera that was inside Melissa and Matthew's home. At 3:39 a.m., Melissa is seen running towards the office. At 3:42 a.m., Matthew walks past the camera towards the kitchen with Melissa right behind him, a disgusted look on her face. At 4:09 a.m., she is captured stopping near the front door and talking to herself. The prosecutors pointed out a faint hue of red on her right hand, possibly blood.
Good
The
night,
defense fought
Ryan.
against this, saying that the footage was not clear enough to draw any conclusions on the state of her hand. She turns around and heads back into the kitchen. The final clip is 4 hours later. At 8:35 a.m., Melissa can be seen wandering around the house with what appears to be a bad case of bedhead. And remember the smartwatch retrieved from Matthew's wrist back at the crime scene. Investigators analyzed the data from that watch, and it revealed that his heart stopped at 4:31 a.m., further solidifying the timeline of the crime. When it was the defense's turn to call witnesses, they made the bold decision to call Melissa herself to the stand.
There were times where he would push me and punch the walls beside my head. He would.
Yes, her hands was red, Miss Jalen. Oh, good night to you, Ariel, too. Have a wonderful night. Thank you so much for supporting and sending the super chat earlier, ma'am. But yes, you're right. Her hand was red. But what did I guys tell you? This is when you know that the defense team is losing their case because they have the prosecutors have overwhelming evidence that's against your client. So when there is the worst case scenario to put your client on the stand to be drilled by the prosecutor and on the stand. So that's like a worst case scenario when they have no other hope to actually beat this case, and they have to rely on the jury's feelings and emotions about what happened to this woman. That's when they put the client up there on the stand to talk so they can give their side of the story. But the simple fact is that even though she's now letting everybody know that supposedly she was with this man for this long and he was abusive to her, pulling her hair, hitting her and strangling her and all the stuff like that, you were in an abusive domestic violence relationship with this man this whole entire time. Nothing told you to go ahead and run. Nothing told you to call the police prior to let them know about this domestic violence that was occurring. But now all of a sudden you want everyone to believe that this time it was so bad that it was only self-defense. But let's go on. Let's hear what else she has to say. And shout out to Señorita Ugly. Thank you for coming. We appreciate you coming. And please hit the like button, guys. Please hit the like button. It definitely helps me to continue to do these type of live streams with you guys. It helps the channel. So just please go ahead and hit the like button. I will prefer the like button than any financial support that you would like to give me. I really do prefer the like button. It only takes 1 minute to click, or you could double tap the screen and it can give me a like sub. Okay, appreciate you. Let's go on.
Stare off at some corners, and he would tell me that there's a demon standing right there. There were times where he would talk in a different voice.
Did that frighten you?
God, yes. I was terrified.
She tearfully recounted her version of events. According to Melissa, Matthew became violent during an argument. He choked her, threw her across a counter, and proceeded to grab a knife. Apparently, a head injury along with alcohol caused Melissa to black out at one point, but she still remembers when Matthew put down the knife to start strangling her again. In self-defense, she grabbed the knife off the counter and stabbed him in the back. Nearing the end of her testimony, her defense thought it was crucial to address the elephant in the room, Melissa lying to the detectives and changing her story during her interrogation.
In your first interview, you didn't go into these details with the detective. Why is that?
I was confused. I was uncomfortable. My head was pounding. I had told them so many times about my head, and I told them that I couldn't think straight because of it.
During cross-examination, the prosecution bombarded Melissa with questions about her drastically inconsistent statements.
Today, in 2022, you now claim you had some kind of head injury, correct?
Yes.
And now, in 2022, you speak of some kind of blackout, correct? Yes?
Correct.
Okay.
She was also questioned about the things she was heard saying on the surveillance camera footage.
You said 4:33 a.m. So effing die, right?
No, I have no recollection of that. I explained my side and why I did what I did.
You're crying right now. Is that what's happening? Are you crying right now?
Do you know what tears look like?
Are you crying because you can just cry on cue?
I'm crying because my life is on the line right now. I'm crying because I still remember all those places, all those plans.
The defense also called the medical examiner to the stand. They stated that in their report, Matthew's blood alcohol level was so high at the time of his death that it was nearly 5 times the legal limit to drive in Florida. Although he wasn't driving anywhere, they suggested that this high level of intoxication, along with his mental health issues, caused Matthew to become erratic, unpredictable, and potentially dangerous. On February 18th, 2022, after 5 days of testimony, Melissa Turner's murder trial wrapped up.
Your duty is to determine if the defendant has been proven guilty or not in accord with the law.
The jury deliberated, and after 7 hours, they reached a unanimous verdict.
Publish the verdict and poll the jurors, please.
We, the jury, find as follows as to the charge. The defendant is guilty of murder in the second degree.
Melissa Turner was found guilty of second-degree murder using a weapon. Her sentencing hearing was on March 18th, 2022. Before a sentence was given, Matthew's mother provided a touching impact statement to the court.
Believe it or not, I don't believe that your greatest crime is having murdered Matthew, but actually it's what you've done to his memory in the aftermath of his death in order to preserve your own life. The story that you have contrived has caused me as much pain as his death. If Matthew's drinking was escalating and he was depressed, it was because of a lifestyle that you involved him in. It was not consistent with who he was and with the way that he was raised. If anyone was a victim of domestic violence, abuse, and manipulation, sadly, it was Matthew.
Melissa's mother also spoke to the court. She defended her daughter, stating that Melissa was a good person who always tried to avoid conflict.
This jury did not believe her claims of self-defense, nor does this court.
Melissa Turner was sentenced to 20.5 years in prison. Following her sentencing, Melissa spoke to the court one last time. She tearfully expressed how much she loved Matthew and never meant to hurt him.
Matthew lost his life, and I lost the man that I loved. I lost my future and my hopes and my dreams. I didn't want to do that to him. The last thing that he wanted, and I knew it because he always tried to hide everything, his drinking, his mental health, and how depressed he was. He tried to hide it from everyone. The last thing that he would want was for the world to know any of it.
Melissa currently resides at the Lowell Correctional Institution in Marion County, Florida. She is set to be released in 2042.
That case was very disturbing, right? She did everything in her powers, to try to save herself. The way, I mean, like I said, the prosecutors hit this one on the nail. They did a great job. They wanted to make sure that it sticked. They made sure that she wasn't able to wiggle out with the self-defense trope. Like, you cannot sit up here and talk about you was in a domestic violence and there was no reports, not from the year prior or anything, about domestic violence with Matthew before. There's no family member that can say or vouch for you that Matthew been domestic violence and doing harm to you, hurting you, hitting you, screaming at you. Even with the videos that they got from the neighbor's camera and audio, you are the aggressor. Your own cameras in your house let you know that you're the aggressor. You went up there to follow Matthew wherever he was, came back down. He came down with no shirt on. You're following behind him. And it's like, that's what I'm saying. There was just too much stuff that was happening that let her know that she was the aggressor in this situation. She went after Matthew for whatever argument that it was. And she is caught saying that he should die. It's crazy how she tried to play the trope now that, the love of my life is gone, as if you're not the one that took the love of your life's life away. You're the reason why he's gone, but you're speaking as if somebody else did it. Like, that was insane. But prayers to Matthew's mom. If he do have mental health issues and depression, and then now being with a manipulative woman who is abusing you verbally and physically, that could have led to the fact that he has so much alcohol in his system and him being depressed. And it's bad too, because when she stabbed him, that's why he bled out a whole bunch, a lot more. And is because of that alcohol count in his system was way over the limit, way over the limit. So that would tend to make you bleed out faster too, right? It's unfortunate, and she really doesn't have no remorse. She did everything to take care of herself. She did everything to save herself, to the point where now you have scratches and bruises on you. But when they first asked you, do you have any bruises on you? Oh, no, I don't have no bruises. There's no bruises. There's nothing. I only have a little cut, and it was for me picking up glass. She did everything. She did everything. So that's just unfortunate. I feel so bad that he had that happen to him. No one should have that happen to him. And she's lucky that she only got 20 years, 20 years, and she probably will have parole. She probably won't even have to serve all those 20 years, So she's lucky that she has that. I do think that she do have mental problems too, and they are taking that into consideration why they sentenced her the way that they did, right? But this is all I have for you guys. I appreciate y'all rocking out with me. And like I said, I'll come back tomorrow with some more stories for you. We'll do this early because I know y'all good folks is going to enjoy the new year, and y'all going to be out there cutting a rug with y'all loved ones and friends and family. And I hope that y'all stay safe and drink responsibly, okay? But shout out to y'all. Make sure y'all hit the like button and hit a comment section. Please subscribe, share to your friends if they're interested in these type of cases and interrogation and understanding the psychology out of a lot of these crimes that we have out here. And I will look at you guys on another one. And also, thank you all for supporting me, for getting this channel to 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year 2024. I must appreciate you. I have never thought in a million years that I would get to 10,000 subscribers. I was so happy and ecstatic when I hit 1,000 subscribers. It's been a long road, guys. The amount of trials and tribulations that I have endured in 2024, and to start to see the fruits of my labor to start to kick in. I just want to thank every one of you, everyone who have always supported me from the beginning and until now. And I will see you guys on the next one. Talk to you soon. Tomorrow, actually. And Happy New Year, just in case if I don't see you. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.